Okay, let's call this to order. Meeting of the West Newbury Select Board, Monday, March 27th. It is 7:13 p.m. Sorry to keep everybody waiting. We had an unexpected thing we had to discuss as usual, but this really was unexpected. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet, also accessible by Zoom participation. As a reminder, the annual and special town meeting is back to being an evening indoor meeting. It will be April 24th at 7 p.m. and that's Monday. The town election will be a week after that. Also, remember, West Newbury town elections are on Monday, not on Tuesday. So Monday, May 1st for the town election. Looking for volunteers for open positions on boards and commissions. Go to wnewbury.org/volunteer. And to get agendas and so forth, wnewbury.org/subscribe. As is usual, the select board will be picking somebody as the citizen of the year, and if anyone has any suggestions, send them to the select board email address. Angus, do you want to talk about
Sure. Yeah. So just to let people know that we've had a slight reorganization, or that's not the right word. So our assistant town clerk, Rebecca Ambra, has recently been promoted to the position of executive assistant town manager. So I'm very delighted to report that, because that position is really already helping, but over time is going to make a tremendous improvement to my office's ability to undertake its responsibilities. So this has been a long time coming, and we'll miss Rebecca in the clerk's office, but it's actually physically becoming the same office because the clerks are moving across the hall to what had formerly been the finance department. So I just want to let people know that if they see Rebecca in a different seat, she actually now has a different responsibilities. I did send a notice around to all staff last week, including with a job description and some narrative about what to expect in terms of communications and so forth, and how that's going to fit into how things have worked. But also, people had maybe had noticed the posting of the assistant town clerk job and jumped to the conclusion that Rebecca was leaving us, and she's not. Was promoted within the organization. So just wanted to share that information, and she has graciously not only agreed but enthusiastically volunteered to continue to support the production of the board's minutes up till we've got someone new and up to speed, because, as you know, we've worked really hard, and really she's worked very hard to get us up to speed and get us current. So we don't want to fall back into a deficit on minutes.
And the minutes have been good. Accurate.
They've been outstanding.
Thank you.
our first item is a special event permit application for use of Action Cove on June 8th. From 11:30 to 2 p.m. by the Bresnahan Elementary School.
Sandra's on. Do you guys have any questions?
Hi, everybody.
Somebody's there. Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
So has this been held in the past?
Yes, this was held definitely last year. Pretty much the same thing. We had Kona Ice come in, and I know that there's an independent health department approval that needs to happen, and they already reached out and said everything is fine, because I believe Kona Ice has a special permit to operate in West Newbury. Mm-hmm. As far as we don't need any special equipment or anything. If there was something that's required from your end, we're happy to accommodate. I know there's certificate of liability insurance that we have to provide within 10 days of the event, which the school will provide.
So was this something that other children will not be able to use the playground while the event's going on?
Based on when I was reading your application, it does not give us exclusive use of the playground. I believe if other kids came in with parents to use the playground, that would be fine. But we're going to have a 3rd grade class. So obviously there would be more children there for, I think it's 11:30 to 2 p.m.
Yeah.
But I don't believe I remember reading in your application, it doesn't say we have exclusive use of it.
Right. I was just wondering whether you thought you had exclusive use. So it sounds like no.
No, I mean, we will follow your requirements and guidelines, but
It's a Thursday, not a weekend. Okay.
It's not gonna be.
yes, 3rd grade celebration.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the little kids will be there, which get run over by the 3rd graders.
We'll have a lot of adults.
So is it
On
just-
ice, so whenever someone's, wanting to be too wild, well, actually, you just give them more sugar, right?
So is it just that we have the best playground in the area that you want to have it here, or?
Can I just say that you actually do have the best playground area? I live in Newbury, poured off of Turkey Hill, and I love it. I love it so much.
Okay.
I have no questions. I'd move that we approve the special event permit application.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So that's a real compliment for our playground.
It is, more people want to be near you guys, so that's great. You just need to put some sort of a ice cream stand and then people will never leave. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I neglected this announcement that was open. Does anyone have any more info about this? The Essex County Community Foundation. Do
Anything about it, Jim?
you know anything about that, or you heard?
No.
Okay. So, anyone that there's the state of Essex County, there's a meeting at Endicott College, 4 p.m. on June 1st. Bring together leaders of public, private, and social sectors to look at a closer how to get things better done in Essex County. So my suggestion is go to the website impactessexcounty.org to get further information. Okay. Page down. Okay. Page down. Next, another special event application, Millennium Running for a half marathon in October 29th. It's great getting things lined up early. This will be 10:30 a.m. Approximately going 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. half marathon, approximately 1,000 runners. Is there someone?
Yes, John
Is that
Mortimer.
John? Hi, John.
Yes, John Mortimer from Millennium Running. Last year, we came at the 11th and a half hour after a permit issue from the former operators. And we said we'd be early this year. So I hope we are earlier than we were last year by a significant margin. This would be the 9th annual Newburyport half marathon. And we at Millennium Running are honored to take the baton and continue it. The event is, again, October 29th. This would be a Sunday, October 29th, headquartered, start and finish in Newburyport. I think you guys know this event has happened multiple years. There is approximately 1.4 miles in West Newbury from the mile 5 mark to about 6.4, which is coming up from Newburyport over Middle Street, taking a left on Garden, taking a left on Rogers, and then departing West Newbury to go back to Newburyport. So that add-on to get to the half marathon mark, we'll work with, as we have in the past. And I did last year work with West Newbury Police Department, and there are 3 details that are critical to the success and safety of the event with the West Newbury Police Department. And we'll continue to do those. But more specific to the time frame, I think we put some general time frames in the application. However, the more specified time frame when runners would be in the town of West Newbury would be approximately 10:12 a.m. to 10:12 a.m. to 12:34 p.m. That'd be your first runner to last runner within the town limits. Much like Sandra did with her 3rd grade event, similarly, we would have the additionally insured to the town, everything required from that perspective as well. So dotting our I's, lowercase j's, and crossing our T's.
John, I would just reiterate that it says you might have 2 porta potties in town, that their pickup and delivery and pickup would be as short of a time frame as possible.
That would be correct. That would be the relay exchange, that basically the halfway is on Browns Lane and Garden Street. So we have some people that would be at that location, and we want to provide 2 porta johns on that corner on the Browns Lane side. That would be as late as possible, as early as possible. Forgive me, it's a really crappy position to be in when the porta johns are there too long. So it really does stink when they're there too long. So we ask our provider to get them early. And the drop-off plan would be on Saturday. So they're there early enough, so we're not scrambling last minute and then having people, take their business in the woods. And then it'll be picked up first thing Monday morning.
Okay.
Are you also putting out signs ahead of the event so residents in the neighborhood will know that the work race is being?
Absolutely. We have a sign program. Actually, the intersections that are most adjacent to that, the 4-way of Middle and Garden will be signed. And then the 3-way at Garden and Rogers, as well as while it's in Newbury, the Turkey Hill intersection with Rogers as well. So we'll sign all the adjacent streets getting to that. There's not a tremendous, of course, on Brown as well, excuse me. Lucky enough, it's not a huge residential population in that specific area. Vehicular traffic with the partnership of the West Newbury Police Department will continue to flow at all times. It's just a matter of whether it be alternating traffic or, slight delays to make sure we're making sure the runners are safe and the vehicular traffic can get where they need to go.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I move to approve the special event permit application for the Newburyport Half Marathon on October 29th.
Second.
Good. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your partnership.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just on the topic of special events and parades and bike-a-thons and walk-a-thons and road races and so forth. I did look at different communities to see what kind of fees people different towns had, and it's, as with a lot of things, it's all over the place. Newburyport charges an hourly fee for a public works employee or more for just deciding how many people they may need and chooses an hourly fee and decides how many hours and how many employees they're going to need, and that is the fee of the event. Other places have no fees. Other places have a flat fee. So just thought I'd throw that out there. So there's a lot of variability, and for the most part, things are it's not something that communities seem to be charging a lot of money for. So
Usually it's an application fee is what I've found doing research. So just to apply, you can pay $150 depending on the community, and then that covers the cost of like administrative processing and stuff like that.
yeah.
And they pick the details separately.
Exactly.
Just to jump in there, if I may.
Still with us.
Yeah, I am. Just because I was interested in that. Millennium Running, as a company, we produce a number of events, anything from downtown Boston to upstate Maine. And you're 100% right. The fees and process are different. The fact that West Newbury has an application alone and not just a letter to a town manager and someone saying yes, and you go through a formal review is a win for your community, first and foremost. I think a nominal fee of, $75 to $250 application fee seems to be par for the course for everything. And then certainly within the interdepartments, if there's more, whether it be Department of Public Works, public safety with police departments or fire departments, those fees then are associated with the work involved specific to those. But I would agree with a application fee just to get it on the books. However, a third grade class might get waived as well, right?
That's good insight, though. I mean,
But we don't know where they're going to park their Maybach.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the cheapest fee I've ever seen was $22. So
That's kind of an arbitrary number.
Yeah,
no, but I think it's reasonable if it's and it depends. You might have a non-for-profit fee, you might have a charitable fee, you might have an interdepartmental community fee. There could be different reasons why you would do different things. But it's up for you guys to vet that. But typically those would somewhere around $100 seems to be typical for us.
Thank you for that insight, John.
Yeah, no worries. Well, thank you guys. And if we can help in any way, I'm glad you guys have a process like this, and I think it's good for your community.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Telephone pole, 190 Crane Neck Street.
I drove down, looked at pole 75. It's there.
John Butler, National Grid.
You can stay right there, John. The mic will pick it up.
We're installing a new pole. The existing facilities on Crane Neck are on the opposite side of the road from the new homes, 100+ feet from those facilities. But the biggest difference is the home's really below the whole surface, below the road. It's down the embankment from the road itself. And in order to maintain height and serve it, we need another pole on their side of the road to allow us to maintain the proper height to get down to the house, get across the street, and maintain our clearances for the other utilities that will use the pole.
Don't want to be playing limbo with that power line as we go underneath it.
So.
I said, you don't want to be playing limbo with the power line, yeah.
uh,
Is this a new house, new?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Mark Grabowski, I don't know if you know anybody there, Dan Grabowski. It's his son's house, that gave him a piece of land.
Okay, anyone have any comments, questions?
No, I move that we approve the installation of a new pole at 190, a new utility pole at 190 Great Neck Street, across the street from the existing pole number 75.
Second,
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So Jim, can I ask a question about Roger Street? I know it's not on the agenda. Did we would send Roger Street then? I don't believe the actual, that was another pole. That's a relocation, like 10 feet away. It's not a new pole, it's just moving a pole away from the artichoke.
We were notified, it was on the agenda.
Yeah, that's some issue about the actual application.
it's not in the,
It wasn't in the packet.
no,
I didn't, okay, I mean, I think I have it because it's been underway for a while,
Yeah,
but I don't.
but not the most recent.
Got noticed that
I
it was.
just, because I saw the legal ad. Drew up, the posting.
so the abutters notice, what abutters does that go to? Is that 100 feet or
No,
just
this one-
direct?
This one had a butters notice, I believe, for new. 300 feet.
300.
Butters.
300 feet, okay.
300 feet.
So does that include like the Conservation Commission as well?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, before it gets to you, it's anything that needs to go to conservation has already gone there before it gets to the board. That's why it's gonna be, had been on my radar since August.
Oh,
It
okay.
takes a while to get through before it's ready for the stage.
sure.
And then if there's a scenic road hearing that needs to be taken into account in this or, skate to act.
Mhm.
So.
So Rogers Street is pretty easy, so if it did slip off the list, Jim, maybe we could put it on for next week,
Yeah.
but I don't, the next 2 weeks, and I don't think John has to be, it's just relocation.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't need a butters notice, it doesn't need to be posted, anything, doesn't affect any trees or anything, but I could check and see what happened with it.
I only have a notice for butters for Kramer.
Okay.
I thought we received notice that it wasn't.
I know she sent you an email, I'm not sure of the actual. But that's a pretty easy one, doesn't affect anybody, just moving it away from the artichoke, trying to get it out of the water.
I'll leave, yes, the notes on.
So, that's on Molten Street then?
Rogers,
Yeah.
right at the artichoke.
Okay.
Rogers Street, okay.
I'll run through it anyway if you have a minute and leave you a copy of it.
Sure.
Okay,
We've got an existing pole 16. That's
it's one of my favorites, actually, 16.
almost in the reservoir, actually. There's maybe a foot or so to work with between the existing location and the reservoir, and it's relatively close to the culvert on Rogers Street. And it needs to be replaced, it's fallen over. And construction department suggested relocating it and moving it and increasing the span so that it wouldn't be necessary in the first place to do any more maintenance that close to the reservoir. So I had a meeting ahead of time with phone because of the length of the span to see if they go along with their facilities and cable, well, not cable, but just phone. And because they're the other joint owner of the pole. And I met ahead of time with Wayne to get his insight on the new location and to make it clear that there's little or no tree work there. It's a little bit of pruning, but it's basically just a relocation of the pole. And leave you a copy of it.
That's is that on the Garden Street side of the artichoke or the other side?
South side of it.
Well, we can see right here. Right.
It's right at the culvert, at the artichoke. And what we're gonna have to do is, we're gonna relocate one pole, but I'm gonna have to increase the height of some others. Even if you
Okay,
increase the
the
height,
half is the new one.
even at,
So it's gonna come on, gonna go to the different side of the street.
right.
Okay,
The main thing is, to get it repositioned and get new poles in it. We've got to increase the height of
so there's the bridge.
Yeah.
other existing poles so that we can increase the span and still have everything up high enough
Okay,
to get us away from this, the maintenance of something that close to the reservoir and the water. I don't know how. I think the road might have got a little wider since that was put in, to tell you the truth, but things might have changed here over the years because there's little or no space to work. We could replace it without having some kind of environmental impact there. Relocating it and moving it and increasing the height of the span, the length of the span will give us more maintenance wiggle room in the future, basically. Construction department wanted it. I had phone out. They agreed they'd go along with it, so after Wayne looked at it, I sent it into the system.
So when you say it's increasing the span, it must be increasing on one side and decreasing on the other side?
Well, no. By moving the pole and lengthening the span, and you have to lengthen the span to move it and get us.
No,
Further away from
you're correct. It's a parallelogram, and this sort of, and this rhombus or whatever. This one gets longer, and this one gets a little shorter.
Yeah.
200 feet,
Right.
Yeah.
We'll move up to a 200-foot span, which is a little long for us in residential,
Yeah,
but, and we'll have to increase the height to make room for phone and the other tenants on the poles. We don't have too much on the poles.
isn't that a three-phase line right there?
It is three-phase.
Yeah,
It's three-phase through there.
as far as the farm, does the farm actually could use three-phase?
Construction one talked about eliminated. I originally had a three-phase service at, I'll call it farm, at one of the, I think, one of the residents close by there that they don't have anymore. And he mentioned something about trying to get to change to single, but anywhere where we have anything already that increases our
Yeah,
capacity is tough to get the other department, the planning department, to give it up.
okay, yeah, and I would advocate for retaining the three-phase because we're revising, our planning board is in the process of revising our solar bylaw. And it's defined by existing utility infrastructure.
Yeah.
So if it's within a certain distance, any parcels within a certain distance of three-phase power lines is a potential candidate. And so if you eliminate three-phase power there, you actually might eliminate the potential for some parcel to have solar PV installed on in the future for distributed generation.
There's a significant amount I've noticed over the years in comparison with some of the other towns that I serve in the amount of solar that's in West Newbury.
Right, and this would not be, what I'm referring to is not rooftop, not residential rooftop solar, but more, like small commercial size. Well, that's what you would need three-phase power for. You wouldn't, if you're putting 15 kilowatts on your roof, you don't need three-phase power. But if you're putting in, 100 kilowatts or more,
Some of them what went into the school.
Right.
Yeah. up near.
Was this road on that map that was on? your-
Yeah, it is.
That,
Yeah.
that blue
Yeah,
line,
right.
yeah, okay. It's hard to read. but
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember.
Yeah,
I think the one at the school was the largest site in town.
yeah, it's definitely the largest.
Yeah.
Well, actually, how much is on the school? Because I mean, you know, on Main Street, there's the Main Street solar
That's what you're
installation.
talking about, Main Street.
Oh,
That's what you're talking
okay, I thought you were talking about the school, still. Sorry, yeah.
He-
I thought you were talking about the school. still.
Page,
Sorry.
page.
Yeah,
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, I took that out of context.
So do we have to, for this one, do we have to re-notify the abutter, or have they been notified?
But a notice requirement for relocation, like, the only thing I have to do is go to select board.
was there legal notice in the paper for this? Oh, okay, in that case,
And conservation, does it need?
They signed off on it?
They did.
no, that's, we've known about this since, we've.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can get this out of the way.
It wouldn't be here if it hadn't, if it needed to go through conservation, it's not gonna make it here until it's, that's one of the things actually that, Wayne and Stephen Bradstreet have been working on is, a nice little
The life
flow
of
chart.
people.
Because the notice requirements, is some of these you need a legal notice in the paper, some of you need a butter notice, some you don't need anything. And then you take into account conservation, scenic road act, shade tree. It's like a Venn diagram of like what's needed when. So we've gone through several. That was great. It's great because this is one of the functions that Wayne's office took on with the expansion of hours. So we've really been reading the statutes, working with town council to really do this so that in the future, we're gonna know exactly what's needed and be able to handle it that much.
There's fewer people to launch a nuclear strike than to.
Yes.
So does this have to be on the agenda for us to?
It would need, you need to.
We need to
vote
add it,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So does the chair have to do that, or can I?
No, you make a note.
For John's benefit, the board's likely to meet next week. We're gonna talk about that.
Why don't we just take?
No, let's,
Okay,
Let's
yeah,
just
if you
get-
want to.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if anyone's
Well,
comfortable.
we've already talked about it. Why don't we, I move that we, add the pole, relocation on Roger Street as an item, not reasonably expected and hence not on the agenda. I move to add that to the agenda.
Second.
all those in favor of adding this item to the agenda? Aye,
Aye.
okay, motion to,
Yeah, I move that we approve the relocation of the pole on Roger Street as shown on the, drawing that, John, I don't recall your last name, but, Butler, that John Butler, provided us. And that apparently we already have within the town offices, but just didn't make it here tonight, so.
Second.
This one and another one that's still pending, actually, the reason they've had it for quite a while is to get through the steps prior to the hearing. I couldn't see, if you still needed conservation's opinion or Wayne's or someone else's to hear it, then just table it till you had them all. Might as well just wait till you have them before you hear it.
Especially Middle Street's gonna be a challenge. Middle Street will be interesting. So there's another one coming at 290 Middle Street.
But again, that
But
has.
that one has to go to planning board first.
But this one's already.
okay, let's get this one fit, let's get this one. So, all those in favor of the Roger Street pole removal?
Aye,
Aye,
Okay, thanks.
great.
thank you.
Thank John.
Okay, thanks.
So John, that's likely to stay as three-phase, correct? That's kind of what.
Yeah, it is. I didn't, construction couldn't really enthuse, but it's, besides, to have it there and not have it, in use and heated up doesn't really make it available, because you don't know. And, planning, the whole other engineering department, planning doesn't usually give up something they already have. And I didn't, I wasn't gonna stop trying to sell it for construction. I think that I did have a three-phase customer there, but I think that since that's gone, but
Yeah, probably, was the farm a three-phase customer, or was it that big
it's
house?
also what we call basic cable construction. It's not on arms.
Okay,
So,
with those triangular spaces,
correct.
yeah,
Like the feeders we redid and everything here on,
yeah,
113. So, because of that too, I mean, it's, you're not gonna spend money to take it down and remove it. And, it made more sense to keep it. We're looking for, you don't know we're gonna need it for, even if it's just another tie between feeders to give us alternatives during outage, things
Yeah.
like that. So it'll stay.
great, thanks.
We all set?
Well said. So we'll get those things signed and shipped out to you, because I know they're different.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Watch your step there on that.
Yeah.
Got lots of trip houses here.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you, thanks.
Considering that, Barbara Marker here, do we want to take things, the water issue, item
Sure.
first? I make a motion, that we, move up the, item H to the next item.
It's probably G, because that's, item G is the first water related with the church and prospects.
Okay,
D?
G.
G and H.
Oh, G and H, okay, you're correct.
G and
Okay,
I
yeah,
are really
okay.
all water related.
Okay.
G, H, and I.
Second,
We have to vote on that,
Yeah,
take it out of order?
yeah. All those in favor? Aye.
All right, so item G, as you know, the decision was made a couple of weeks ago to kind of pivot on the draft article for the 625,000 and to instead use that same article placeholder to seek voter authorization to borrow the estimated balance of the funds, which we've penciled in at 2.5 million. One thing we can ask is whether we have quantitative power, whether it's closer to an estimate or whether 2.5 is still, the 2.5 million is still the number. But anyhow, that's why it's on for discussion, is just where we have now draft language from bond counsel. I wanted to first share that, but also just talk through this issue of the standard language and whether to change that to exclude the reference to taxation. I just want to make sure we get the article language right. And then we have gone ahead and got some estimates from Hilltop Securities on potential or preliminary estimates of debt service, so we can get into that as well. But the first issue was just the form of motion.
So the last word from council was that we can strike the taxation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have some experience about that because it is, as you know, a general obligation bond is pledging a full faith and credit. So it's hard to, the intent is definitely to pay the debt service with the water, enterprise budget. But, I do wonder if we strike that, have we, created an issue if for some reason in the future, water revenues didn't support the debt service, we've still got to pay the bill.
Well, trust me, they will get they will get their money regardless whether we have that little word there or not. I think we should get rid of the word.
I think definitely from a perception issue, we ought to get rid of the word because it's not, that's not the intent.
So we've had prior motions that the water department has borrowed?
The last time let's see, I'd have to go back and look at
I
that.
just
What
wondered
did
if
what
that
did we,
was
what did
there.
we do for the tower? What did,
Yeah,
what did that say? Can't
Yeah.
possibly remember.
Right. So, Jim will see if he can find that line.
Okay.
Prior. It was also 1.1 million was. Fall, that was fall of 19. I think the 1.1 million additional borrowing, I wouldn't say that was fall of 2019.
I don't remember, but you could do that.
Yeah, I think it was, but
And what was that for?
that was 1 million that basically covered the shortfall on the water tank as well as the water treatment.
Oh, right.
Yeah. That was the last borrowing authorization that we've got.
Mhm. So while Jim's looking for that, does the amount of the debt look like that's gonna work in with the long-term plans for the department?
Sean was working on that, and he thinks he's pretty close to that. So
Okay,
he should be back at home, but it should be right in that ballpark.
okay, great. And when will you hear back from him?
I talked to him today, he said he was working on it, so I didn't get a definitive answer when he was getting it,
Okay,
but he's in his discussions with that, so.
okay.
We did have a Zoom meeting earlier today. Jenny and Caitlin and I had a meeting with, Hilltop was there, but it was really primarily with the USDA Rural Development, just to learn more about that program and whether we might be eligible. If we are eligible, the interest rate would be favorable to what you see in these models, which is ranging from, I think it was 4.5% to 5% in the estimate. They do offer a longer term of borrowing. You can go up to 40 years, which is 10 years longer than you could do with normal municipal borrowing. And the interest rate at this point, and the woman did say it can change, but right now it's 3.75%. That's not as good as in the old days it was 2%, but still it's less. But we're going to have to do, some more research to know if we're eligible. She did say based on our median household incomes, there's definitely no grant funds we would be eligible for, but we may be eligible for lower interest borrowing through the USDA Rural Development than we might be if we. Yeah, so that's something we're going to continue to look at. There are some strings attached with that, in terms of there's the buy-in, but there's some other provisions that I think we'll probably need to apply, adhere to anyway with the ARPA funding. But I asked the woman, are these going to align totally with the ARPA funding? She wasn't able to answer that. She said, so I assume they would, but obviously we gotta understand that. She also said they would need, one of the things they would look for in an application to finance something through that program would be a determination that a review has been conducted through NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, that the project wouldn't basically disturb anything. And we all know it wouldn't, but someone's got to do that report, and that's got to be to their satisfaction. So the way we left it was she's going to send us a lot more information about the details of the program. We will look at that really closely to see if it's something, A, that we can do, and B, is it worth it for the lower interest, whatever other hoops we have to jump through. My guess is the answer is probably yes, because it's such a large amount of money that the difference of 1.25% or more on borrowing would be worth it. But we might not know that answer for some period of time.
It was interesting to see the difference even of 0.5%
Yeah.
on, and the each one was a different payback period, because longer and shorter depending upon the interest rate, but it was interesting the difference in the amount of interest paid over the course of the loan is even, it's just amazing how much difference there is.
So Jim did pull up the last from 20. That's the 29. That's it. Okay, great.
That's 7.
Got it. Go back to that, to 19. So both of them, it looks like, they talk about appropriating and, but neither of them, it looks like a quick read, has the word taxation. The one from 2017 says to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and to under over transfer from available funds. And or borrow by short or long-term notes and sell 1.7 million for purchasing, constructing, installation, a water tank, blah, blah, blah. Putting all related equipment. It doesn't have that similar clause as we see here.
Mhm.
And to determine whether this amount shall be raised by borrowing, taxation, transfer of available funds or otherwise provided. So obviously
That
language
flew.
would have gone through
That flew,
bond council.
Yeah.
This came from bond council. So I think it's just a matter of, we send that language back to bond council, say, does this
Yeah.
work? And I would say we use the exact same language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Does the Board of Water Commissioners have any feel on, because I'm sure the question will come up at town meeting, what kind of borrowing we talking here? Are we talking 10 years? Are we talking 30 years? I'm sure that somebody will ask that question. And so, is the board more favorable to a lower annual payment and a longer pay period, or a slightly higher pay, monthly pay? Monthly and yearly, a yearly pay period, but a shorter payoff time. So any thoughts on that, Bob, or?
Well, we have a meeting tomorrow afternoon, and that's something we have not discussed. I think we'll get together with Angus and figure out what's best for everybody concerned. 30 years plus 40 years, or, which is better. But that's something I can't make a decision on.
Right.
But I think that's something we need to work with Angus on, work with you folks on, and figure out, and obviously Taylor and Howard, to figure out where we're gonna go and the best for everybody concerned.
So the 30-year one, the amount of interest with a 5% rate is $2,372,000 versus the
It's basically more than $1 million more over the course of the loan.
exactly. It's a lot versus the 4.5% rate paid off in this one 25 or 20?
The third of 3 is 20.
Yeah.
Is 20. It's $1 million less interest,
Yeah, it's also
which is amazing.
0.5% lower interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, $1 million is gonna be chump change in 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, if it was me paying the whole thing, I'd go for the cheapest we could, save us some money. So, but again, that's only me. And we're gonna need, I'm no financial expert, so we need to figure out, collectively where we're going. But if we can save $1 million, I'd much rather save $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, the issue obviously is gonna be how that translates to rates.
Yes.
The longer term is the lowest annual payment.
Right.
But over time, you're paying much more.
Pay it higher.
But, and that's where I think it ties in, also with the overall capital financing strategy, because if there's gonna be multiple capital projects with the main replacements over a period of years, so we're gonna be layering debt on debt on debt, that might recommend a lower annual payment, even though in the long term, you're paying much more for interest. So that's where I think it ties in with the scope of the Tate and Howard study, including kind of a complete capital program, including the financing strategy for that, because that's I think there's definitely going to be some difficult decisions, because even at the low ends, 165,000 annually is like, 16% of the existing operating budget. So it's a good, it's a major increase. And that's just one project.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to look at the overall capital plan for water and see how far out. Or if this was bonded for 20 years, is there a project that actually wouldn't be accomplished for 20 years, in which case they wouldn't be like, that would come on as this was being paid off.
I can't figure out what you're saying, but I'll.
Well, okay, so there are what, maybe a dozen different, there's a list here.
Oh, I see. Oh, it's something that is so far out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Some of these so far out there that at 20 years, this would be paid off by the time.
Gotcha,
By
okay,
the time they had to be implemented.
okay.
Yeah, I think if you look at this, this is, what the water department submitted a couple of weeks ago. And let me just do a screen share, because I know we've got at least a couple of people who are remote. I think I've heard Mike say that some of these toward the end of the list are truly long-term needs and not something that's necessarily in the 15 to 20 year time horizon. I'd much rather hear that either from Mike or one of you all, but I feel like I've heard him say that. So I think the question is, which of these, like in terms of on the calendar, as we look over the next 10, 12, 15 years, which of these are truly 10 to 15 year that we're going to need to get them started in that time frame, or it's going to be a real problem? Should we be looking at this as a 20-year plan, or is this really a 40-year plan?
Mhm.
And I'm hoping the Tate and Howard work is going to help us answer that question, because that's going to have a lot to do with what the financing strategy is.
Right.
Yeah, looking at some of those things, there's some that I think should be done sooner than others. Bailey's Lane for one, maybe training field. This training field, I think, is a 2-inch line that goes around and covers those 4 houses. Bailey's Lane is only a 6-inch line that goes as far as number 16. And then it's a 2-inch line after that. And you've got some pretty good real estate beyond that. It's not really protected by any good fire hydrants down there, because there's only one, and that's in front of 16. And when we had the bonfires and stuff down there, we were drawing water off of Bridge Street and every place else we could. So that would, to me, would be one of the areas that I would rather see us start to at least extend it down for an 8-inch main, as far as at least the end of 40.
Yeah, hopefully they reprioritize this, because currently that's shown, Bailey's Lane is shown as their priority grade, their priority grouping of 3.
Yeah, I think it should be moved up. We need to take a look at that list again and
Reprioritize.
yeah, reprioritize it, because there was someone there. He's got Mechanic Street on there. That was kind of feeds into what's the development up there? It's moved in there anyway. North Farm Drive, so there's, that isn't quite as critical as say Merrill Street or Bailey's Lane or some of the other dead ends. So I mean, there is some stuff that we need to. I think we need to take a look at that. Do some, prioritizing a little bit differently than that's there.
Could they, instead of having a phase, could they put like years, 10 years, 15 years? I think that'd be more helpful than just phase 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah, it could be,
If they're modifying it anyway, that would help for long-term planning.
That's a, yeah, at least for money planning, yeah.
I do know, I talked to Mike about that going back a couple of years, and I do know there was reluctance, understandably, to get into like specific years, because no one can predict the future. But I think if they did it at least in like 3-year increment, 1 to 3, 4 to 7, you
Even
know, 8 to
5-year
10,
increments.
even 5-year increments, but yeah, that way it's like, there's enough, you know, because it's a fluid situation. But, you know, it leaves enough wiggle room, but I think that, you know, even this introduction of these stated phases on the left was something that was added, you know, at our request, because it wasn't part of there, and initially it was just a lift, and so we at least got it into those phases, but I think having years or at least.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be more helpful, particularly as you're looking at financing strategy.
Exactly. No, you can't really answer the financing question without having, you know, kind of a sense of the time of the future obligations.
And so there's also a page with the capital plan.
Yes.
I mean, are there things other than pipeline replacement and repair that,
You mean, is this what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so it doesn't go beyond this year. Other than,
So those are things that we're planning on doing.
Yes, right.
I mean, but now, yeah.
so are there things other than pipeline replacement? That's what I'm asking, that need to be on this capital plan.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think that the next one of the biggest things we're gonna do is find water. And that's gonna be millions. It's gonna be very pricey.
Yeah, I noticed it says 5 million for development of the treatment.
That was one of the figures we had.
That seems outdated based on recent reports.
It's probably, at this point, it's probably outdated,
Mhm.
because that was probably 3 or 4 years ago. It was done.
Yeah, we really ought to work at the very least with the number in the most recent report on that. And even that obviously is gonna be low.
It's not gonna be cheap.
So I think, while the, you know, rate structure could change outside of the, you know, the Church and Prospect borrowing, there might be other reasons to adjust the rate structure. I do think that it would be really helpful, going into town meeting to have, you know, an estimate of what debt service at these amounts, 165 to 195, or maybe by then we have a better idea of the USDA, and maybe there's some lesser number that could be part of the mix, but to be able to say, you know, roughly what that would add to the rates in order to absorb that level of debt service would be helpful.
Would any of the 2.5 million be be tackled by the water department's stabilization fund, or is it is the plan to borrow the whole 2.5?
If I remember correctly, you folks gave us, if you will, 625,000. We plan on using the 600 we were going to use for the pipe to put toward, you know, the remaining balance. So, you know.
So Angus, to that point, maybe we're not borrowing 2.5.
True.
Right.
Well, even then, wasn't the 2.5 the overall cost, including the cost of pipe?
No. That was a net.
Okay, so it actually is.
That's
the
net
equity pipe is now up above like 3.1, 3.2, something like
That's
that.
what we're using, yeah, waiting for an updated opinion of cost, because what we have is the, you know, the numbers that you see up here.
Yeah.
Which is just based on per linear foot.
Yeah.
So, you know, Tate and Howard's working on an updated kind of opinion of probable cost. We're not gonna have a true cost, as you know, for another year until it's put out to bid, but that's where these numbers, you see the 1.66 and the 960, that's just based on per linear foot. So that brings us to what, 2.7. So I think where we got to the 2.5 million plus 625, which, gets you to what, 3.125. I think that was kind of like a best guess just 2 weeks ago at the meeting. So that's part of why, if Tate and Howard comes to us and they say 3.125 is not conservative enough, they may come to us and say it should be 3.3, in which case we might want to increase the request for borrowing. But we would need to know that kind of like ASAP, because the warrant's got to be posted 2 weeks from tonight, signed and posted 2 weeks from tonight. So there's not a lot of time.
So Tate and Howard is aware of that we need it.
And we're talking with them early January
Yeah,
about
I know we need it for the April meeting. I will be on the phone with them first thing in the morning.
Oh, we need it 2 weeks ahead of the
Right.
meeting, yeah.
Right.
But so the thought was that
I'm sorry, I just interrupted. I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but let's say the borrowing was 2.5, the authorization plus the 625, and it came in at 3.3. That's when they could put 175 of water stabilization toward it. So it's not like that would be an absolute nightmare scenario. It just, but I think the best number we can have is going to be good, as long as everyone understands, and not you all, but as long as every voter understands, it's still just an estimate until the thing goes out a bit.
But I think it would be good to have a long-term financial plan, even before you say, all right, let's put the 625 or whatever towards the debt. I think we should look at everything and make sure that makes the most sense, depending on.
You don't want to use up all your,
Yeah.
Reserve, yeah.
No, I can understand that. We had talked about it. With you folks giving us what you did from the ARPA money, I personally don't want to, basically sit down and say, thanks, guys, we're not going to put anything else in.
Mm-hmm.
We need to put in some of our own money, if you will, in good faith.
Sure.
Instead of just saying thanks, and we're going to go out and buy Cadillacs or whatever, but that's, but I would like to see us at least put in some of our own. Obviously, I think we have to put in some of our own money. To keep everything going.
so Bob, if it's $1.1 million or whatever it is now, approximately that now, I could definitely see using some of it, but with all sorts of other things that may crop up or other things you want to do, I wouldn't use it all up. No.
Don't spend it all.
So Wendy had asked earlier, I'm not sure the question was understood about other capital needs. Or at least I didn't understand the answer clearly. So, there are a bunch of things that a number of articles, half a dozen, maybe even more than that, articles that we're going to be voting on at town meeting now for,
Non-pipeline.
Non-pipeline. Most of them are actually not technically capital needs, but I think you're going to be drawing on state. But I think I think you were planning on drawing on your stabilization funds for some of those.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm wondering, are there other things out there that we don't know, that you know about, that we don't know about yet, that the town doesn't know about yet? Other significant expenditures that are going to be drawing on your stabilization, besides the piping that we're talking about right now? Is there other stuff? Like I said, there are half a dozen articles that will be on the town meeting warrant for things, totally appropriate things, but we're just wondering what else is out there.
Sitting here tonight, I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
Really.
We try to cover all the bases,
Yeah.
to make sure we're
Yeah.
trying to get it as up to date as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff we're putting in for, we need.
Yeah.
As far as, anything else down the pipe, any major improvements, I don't, at this moment, outside of lengths of pipe or if something catastrophic happens, I don't see anything that we have to address tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
There's obviously something out there you're gonna have to do 5 years from now or,
Yeah. Okay.
So, as you know, every year and year round, we try to keep the town-wide capital improvements program up to date. And so this that I put up on the screen is from the town-wide capital improvements program. And this includes all the water, and you'll see that this basically mirrors what I just showed us. We received that input from the water department, we put it in through here, and just looking through this, almost everything that we've got on the capital program is a water main replacement, with the exception, we had the replacement pickup truck that was done 2 years ago. We got the Dole Place, both, well-filled chemical feed facility, as well as potential water filtration plant if needed. We have the pipe save water tank, which is ongoing right now. The well-filled exterior, which ended up dropping below the dollar threshold for capital, was still on here. An air compressor replacement, which I don't think we have a dollar amount in. So basically, the water main replacements are the majority of the capital program. So if there is something, we need to get it on here, because this, we need to be able to rely on this as complete as we can. So I don't think, we've asked, we update it all the time, so I don't think there's anything that isn't shown here. But if there is, we got to get it on here, because this is intended to be a complete picture of future capital.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything, but that doesn't mean there isn't something out there that I don't know about at this point.
But there's no like $500,000 thing. You
I will
probably
certainly
think of.
own.
Yeah.
I will certainly own.
Okay.
At least not that I know about.
So the work that Tata and Howard are doing, that's 85% complete, that is updating this, or is it the rate study and all of that?
No, they're doing rate study or just an hydraulic study. Part of it they've done is upstairs. I've read through it. There's some changes I'd like to make. There's some things I want to put in or clean up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't really read the whole thing. But I want to go back and reread it and make some notes on some of the stuff that I've already made notes on and change my opinion on a couple of things.
Mm-hmm. So, but weren't they doing the rate study? Didn't they take it over?
They're doing the rate study, but this isn't the rate study, though. This is
The
the
hydraulics study.
hydraulic study.
So what's the schedule for the rate study?
I'm not sure.
Mark?
He hasn't given us a timeline yet.
Okay.
We'll have to
Talked
push
a
it.
couple times, we need to
Push
push a little harder.
We can,
Yeah.
because we'll need to have the town meeting.
Right.
We'll need a vote for town meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we heard some of that.
Yeah.
Kind of overall capital program. I did, I put in that background memo back from December, that whole thing we talked about last meeting with the tax rate recap, just to kind of round out the background on that. The point is, the effort was made to, because you can see based on the numbers, there's been more than $100,000 delta between actual revenues and actual expenses in each of the last 3 years. So the idea was, if that happens again this year, of course, this is the year it probably won't happen, but we didn't know that when, a year ago. It seems logical to have this 100,000, which could then put right into stabilization. So anyhow, I just included that background just so you kind of could see the, and then subsequent to that was the notice from DOR that you can't do that. Here's why. That's why we had to take that out. The intent there was to say, hey, in fact, there has been clearance of revenues above expenses, pretty significant clearance the last few years. If we could just get some of that right in this water stabilization, that would be a plus. But DOR didn't let us do that. So the other thing on item H, the discussion of potential updated intermunicipal program with Newbury Port. That's also something that's on tomorrow's water commission agenda as a follow-up to the discussion with new outside counsel. So I don't know, do you want to, so we're basically working on a kind of a list of need to have, would like to have, want to have, and one of the attorneys working on that to get your board's input to try to come up with something that's a clear statement of the house, basically starting point for future discussions. What things we absolutely need to have, what are the things we really want to have, and what are some of the things we might be willing to give, and what are the gap what we want.
So do you want me to go through some of those?
Yeah, you can pick some highlights and then we can, I can, put that into a document, send it to you tomorrow for your meeting.
So these were some of the as Angus mentioned, there was like essential, non-essential, and must-have, and so forth, and desired things that I think we'd like to see in relation to an agreement with Newburyport. And so we just got a chance to look at this just like, when did we get it? Yesterday, I guess. So I'll just sort of list them and you we'll give them to you. You can talk about it at your meeting tomorrow, but just so you hear what some of the ideas from Ivrea Freed, who you people talk to. So the must have, and I had no no quarrel with the way she delineated things. That must have, the select board would like to have approval over the location of the distribution system of their planned pipeline as it pertains to public ways. So that seems like something that's non-negotiable. The select board would like approval over the location of the pump house, and the current preference is for the East Shore pump station rather than the West Shore of the reservoir. Simply because it's further away and there's already a building there, and so forth and so on. Documentation showing that raising the dam will not compromise the town's well system. And if documentation does not currently exist, additional work in this area is needed. And I agree with that totally. And I'm sure you both agree with that. Yeah. The Time Bond report advises that the city decrease the amount of water available to the town based on current usage volumes. Water commissioners believe it is critical to establish rights to at least 175,000 gallons a day for the term of the intermunicipal agreement. And I would say we shouldn't lower that amount. We don't know what's going to happen.
No, we don't.
No. Water commissioners believe that the contracted rate for the must reflect the fact that the town is not benefited by the improvements to the city's internal distribution system, which is totally correct. We don't get any improvements. We don't have water meters. We don't have anything. We don't have any piping, and yet we're not getting any reduction. So it says the city has, I don't think I knew this, it has offered a reduction of 20% off of the residential water rate for a 3-year period only. And that a reduction would be good, but I don't think, cutting it off at 3 years is appropriate. Yeah.
Have tied that to the surface water protection bylaw. which if the town of West Newbury passes that, that goes on forever. We give them the surface water protection bylaw for as long as we're here, they give us a weight reduction for 3 years. I don't think that's anywhere near comparable.
No, I agree, yeah. So those were her ideas of what should be, you know, it's pretty much non-negotiable, and, here, the desired, provisions were, if a surface water protection plan bylaw is adopted, contribution of the annual salary of the enforcement official, and that seems kind of reasonable. This is one thing that I've sort of been trying to see if it's feasible, if it would work at all, and just my idea, if we're ripping up the streets and putting pipelines in there, why, and the area that would be most affected by a surface water bylaw, because it's closest to the watershed of the artichoke, is the area around the reservoir. And if we're putting a pipeline there, is it possible to put any hydrants in that area? And that, I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible to create pressure enough to make the hydrant function. But sometimes you do have situations where there's simply a pump, a fire pump or truck is just connected to a short span of pipe to a pond or something, and that is fire protection. So it seems like we could at least investigate whether that is a possibility.
At least investigate it, put something like 7 hydrants along wherever it's going. Some of your, all right, Indian Ridge Road, something down that way, maybe on the farther
Garden,
Garden,
yeah.
Middle Street and Garden, or whatever, you know, some of those intersections.
It seems like it should be possible.
It should be, that was
yeah.
just a question to ask them.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a great thing. I did, you know, I think the second time that there was a meeting out by the reservoir, you know, by the existing, gatehouse. I mentioned that, Archie, because you had mentioned that in a previous meeting. I mentioned that to their engineer, the engineer from, I don't recall the name of the company. Wasn't Time Bond. It was another company that's actually was doing design work for them. I don't think it was Time Bond. I could be wrong about that. But in any event, I mentioned that to him, and you know, his comment was, well, you know, that pipeline isn't carrying water all the time. It's only carrying water when water is being
No, but why can't you have just negative pressure or you have a couple of pumpers, one down at the reservoir, and if there's a fire and you have a hydrant that you can connect a pumper to, and to just suck water out of the thing.
No, his point was that there may not be water available in the pipe all the time. Not just that it wouldn't be pressurized, but that it might not be available.
Okay.
You know, so if they're not pumping from one reservoir to another, if they're not transferring water, they may actually gate off the ends, and they may have gate valves on either end.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that.
It's
Not
not really an open system.
Right.
Yeah.
At least ask it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I did agree with that. I was just trying to throw out a little bit of feedback.
No, but it makes sense, but I'm sure there's a way around that.
Right.
So this one, this is simply how the select board would have some say over the disruptions to public ways and noise at the pump house, and I don't think there's any disagreement on that. Even from the existing legislation from the early 1900s, the West Newbury Select Board does have control over that. Noise mitigation, aesthetics of the pump house and so forth. And so these were considered non-essential things, but something that we can think about. Concerned about the projects and this would the location of the new pipeline and the project's impacts to local trail systems, establish clear lines of communication and collaboration between the city and town to ensure that information is exchanged freely relative to the Indian Hill Reservoir project. And I don't think that's really non-essential, because a lot of this has been sort of done under the radar, and we've been told about stuff. Oh, well, it's happening in West Newbury, but we're not really telling them until the last possible second. So I would disagree that that's actually happened at all at the moment. We've sort of been the poor third cousin that doesn't get the invitation to the wedding.
Yeah.
That's not a good analogy. I gotta do that. And what's the last one? I don't know the order.
It's just
What, can you
establishing
guys read that one? I'm
Yeah,
not
so
sure
it's
I understand that
a
one.
regional body to ensure watershed protection, so it's more about like water quality and stuff, but I mean, that's not fully developed yet, it's just a concept.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the things that the Mears and Harrington came up with, and I think they're pretty good ideas. Yeah.
Angus, can we get a copy of that? Because I'm.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I obviously haven't seen that, so it would be good for us to see it.
Yeah, I had reached out to Mark late last week suggesting it be on tomorrow, because we had, we wanted to make sure, that,
Oh,
Hey,
okay.
Rick,
Yeah.
Angus is gonna send a table form of it.
Okay, I just thought you want, I mean, I don't,
No, that's fine, as long as we don't.
I don't need it, so, I mean, after today, we have an electronic.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a plan.
yeah, so that's, I had suggested for tomorrow, so, because the whole idea, obviously, Avery met with each body separately, talked, and, we asked her to kind of put together what she heard, and so she's now drawn that up, and we want to say is what she wrote, what we think we said, and does it reflect the two boards collectively? Because, as we talked about before, we don't want to start an intermunicipal discussion until we have our starting point, our kind of negotiating posture, if you will. So I think, getting that pinned down on, what we need, what we want, and what we might be willing to, give to get what we want, on what conditions. So something like, for instance, a surface water protection bylaw might not be something the town would consider, independently, but in the context of a bigger deal, might be something the town would consider. Ultimately, it's up to town meeting voters.
It is.
And we certainly understand that the most the boards can commit to in a binding way would be to work toward bringing something forward. You can't pre-commit town meeting to a certain action.
Right.
Mhm.
And it sounds like from what Ashley was reading and everything else, I think we both would agree on, 99.9% of what was.
Right.
What she had right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was drafted after consultation with both boards, so, yeah.
I mean, one thing, they're gonna say, well, they're gonna say, well, you haven't needed more than the 175, so why don't we drop you down? But I don't know why we wanna ever get to the point where we agree to a lower number. Am I being stubborn about that, or?
No, I think that's very good. I think that would be.
If you don't know what, how do we know that the, long-term, I'm not trying to scare anything, but how do we know the long-term viability of our well field? It could fail.
It could.
I'm not saying it is at all. Don't anyone say that, but I think we have to have a little insurance plan, and having a little bit more than what we have been needing to purchase still I still think we should,
And
Hold out
just
for
because
that.
it doesn't mean we have to use
Right.
yeah.
And you can't predict the weather. If we have a drought like we did last year, we're gonna use all of that 175,000.
Mhm.
Were you actually drawing, during the drought, were you actually drawing up to the 175,000?
I don't know exactly what the numbers were. We were drawing a lot of.
Pretty close to that?
I don't see
Yeah,
it.
I'm only guessing at the numbers right now. I wasn't there for a lot of last summer, so I didn't see the numbers come in, but I know we used a lot of Newburyport water.
Yeah, no, I know you used a lot more than you had for, okay, I didn't think it'd been close to that.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some notes I had from a couple of weeks ago. It looks like the total usage, including what we pumped and what we purchased, has averaged about 51,000 gallons per day over the last 30 years. Does that sound about right?
51,000 from Newburyport?
No, total.
No, we do 51,000 a day.
Yeah.
And we're doing, well, I mean, today alone, we did like 117,000.
But over the course of a year.
I think those 51 million gallons.
51 million gallons a day for the year.
I don't think it's
No,
50, yeah.
Is it
I'm
51
going
million for the year?
51 million a year.
Yeah, that's what I
Right.
think that number is.
Okay, I'll check with my, all right.
I haven't seen a 50,000 gallon a day and
And remember, it's an average, so there's a,
Right.
There's some days we don't.
and usage can really fluctuate
Yeah.
depending upon the temperature and the dryness and all that stuff.
That's interesting, though, it's 51 million for the year, that's almost 140,000 gallons a day.
Right, no, I don't,
Yeah, that's, yeah.
we'll get the right numbers.
I remember when I first started working here, we used to shut the report off every November. And never turn them on again until like April or May. And we got to find, our well field to, cover the whole town during winter. But it wouldn't cover it, it still won't today, with all the new houses and everything else, there's no way.
we still haven't recovered from the summer that we had. I mean, our wells are at 22 feet and they typically would be at 27 feet now. So.
All right, next item on is also water related. I got this email, Mark had also brought it to my attention, and I believe you were on the webinar, the PFAS regarding the proposed new rule. I'm sure you've seen this, it's been all over the papers. So I wasn't able to attend the webinar. I had a different commitment, so, but there is basically KP is partnered with another firm to look at potentially signing on to, I don't know if it's technically a class action lawsuit.
It's not a class action yet. You want to be in before it's a class action,
Yeah.
I said, so.
So I did send this to Tim and he did verify that is something that they're involved with. I did go back to him and say, what specific action is KP recommending to their municipal clients? I haven't got a response to that yet, which suggests to me that they're probably crafting one, because otherwise he would have just sent me a quick response. But I would say once I have their advice on that, I would bring that back for the board to consider an action to be taken. For now, it's just informational. I think it's probably needless to say that if this rule takes effect, it stands to potentially cost the, water.
A pretty penny, because you need to activate a cavern, but I think you get rid of most of it, and, it kind of bothers me in a way, because I didn't attend the webinar, but I did look online at some of the stuff that's going on. EPA and DEP and all that kind of stuff are only picking, it seems like they're only picking on drinking water. But PFAS is in your everyday cooking pans, if you've got non-skid, non-slip or non-stick surfaces, that's some of the chemicals that make up, the PFAS makes up, are in your cooking with. And there's no one saying anything, oh, you shouldn't use them.
And it's, I think, didn't I hear something like raincoats and clothing?
Oh.
Yeah, waterproof coatings, I mean, Teflon is always.
Yeah, like fire retardant stuff, even baby sleepwear, stuff like that, if it's fire retardant, it's got that in it.
I watched a commercial on, kitchen pans, and at the last sentence on the bottom, it said PFAS free. It's like.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are non-stick coatings now that are.
Right.
Yeah, but you know that they're not
Right, exactly.
gonna be worse 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's reassuring is that, a lot of dental floss has it on it too, so.
Everything.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I believe it.
A lot of stuff, Teflon is loaded with that stuff.
And so if you have a scratched frying pan, that's
Right.
the worst, because
It's even
you've been
better.
eating actual pieces of it,
What's
yeah.
even better is your old scratch frying pans that are black because you've overheated them.
You stick with cast iron.
Yeah. That's the thing about
I have an
stainless.
induction oven.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with a new house, so I haven't been able to use my cast iron. I still found ways, I'll tell you. If I can't use a stove top, it's very distressing, because that's how steak.
Yeah.
The induction oven doesn't recognize the
I mean, induction stove top.
induction stove top,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really?
Cast iron works. We have induction stove top and we use.
Mine
cast
doesn't
iron.
work. It blinks, it tells me there's nothing on there.
We'll talk about
Okay.
So on the PFAS, if they're proposing an MCL of 4, what's the detection limit for the, for the lab?
I believe, I think that's.
So
the other thing, you know.
How can you have an MCL if the detection?
I think is it? I thought the detection level was, if it was 0.03 or something like that, that's what they would go even lower, so that's. I just thought it was 0.4 was as low as they could test for, I don't,
Yeah, it's crazy.
Was interesting, the MCLG, the goal is 0,
Right.
right, that's the.
or whatever their detection.
But these things never, because the fluorinated thing is very difficult to break that
Right.
bond.
Right.
So they're gonna hang around for centuries.
Right.
So you could have a 0 goal, but it's impossible, yeah.
Because they're still out there, they're still in the environment, they're still gonna be there for long after we're gone.
Okay.
All right, so we're waiting on KP Law.
Yeah. And I thought we were through I, we're actually back to D now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something out there. That's it for us?
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
it.
No, not a problem, thank you for moving us up.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a stand, I don't want to. Don't do that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back to item D. We get a letter like this every year, and every year we bring it to the board if there's time. Sometimes we get the letter, it's off cycle, and there's not even time, but what we've identified in the past as being priorities for either budget or state expenditures have been, I'm trusting my memory here, but basically Chapter 70 formula, funding for Middle Street Bridge, funding for water infrastructure, and funding for pedestrian improvements, including design for that, because often you'll hear construction grants, but it's tougher to find the design funding other than locally. So I'm pretty sure those are the things that we've typically sent along.
Those are what I would apply. So I'm just, I'm looking at the form. There's one for general priorities and one for local priorities. I wasn't sure about the distinction between those two.
I would think that something like Chapter 70 would be a general priority, and local, I would think, would be something like that we might like to earmark for.
Oh,
So for instance, a couple of these earmarks that have come along, I believe were probably intended to be responsive to our prior requests for pedestrian.
Okay.
They parse this out because originally people would just say, what are your priorities? And people would say Chapter 70, and they'd say these things. But the local priorities are very much like the park that needs to get built, or
The sidewalk.
the sidewalk, the specific area.
Like what we got at the page for the,
Yeah, and so the general priorities are the things that essentially you prioritize as a community over the whole, and then the local projects are just the little items that we want to get earmarked.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, I don't have any to add to that list.
no, you good? Rick?
Yeah.
Okay,
Great. All right, so we'll send a memo.
just as per usual, yeah.
Yeah.
When are you here for things?
Oh, you're here for TEC.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Oh, I'm sorry, Wayne, I didn't, I could
Plug
have,
in the back.
no, I thought
So
we
just
had
take G.
dealt with his thing.
I mean, F.
Oh, okay,
I don't think we need to make a motion.
no, okay, F.
So this is one, you know, we talked about it 2 weeks ago, but at that point you didn't have the specific scope in front of you, but now you do. And you have the proposed, cost. I'll say at a staff level, you know, we have a lot of enthusiasm about this, partly because we think it kind of ties together some disparate things between Page or the town center or this crossing here, which has been identified as you know, could be improved, signage there. As well as the concerns we have of the middle high school and the proposed elimination of the crosswalk at Nick's. You know, there's a lot of different things along the corridor. So at a staff level, we have a lot of enthusiasm over looking at it more corridor wide. But we also, on a more practical level, totally believe that doing an effort like this over the longer term will improve our competitiveness for state, federal funding, specifically through the TIP. And we did have a meeting this last Thursday, last week or 2 weeks ago, anyhow, but with the MVPC transportation planners, and they 100% agreed that, you know, having a plan, even if it's a conceptual plan, is going to be, you're going to be better off at the regional level than just having a, you know, kind of a wish list. It's a lot of money, but it's also a lot of work that we'd be asking them to do.
And so the grant is for 30,000?
So that, well, that's for, so that we told them to break their scope into 2 different scopes. So one of them was for 30.
Yeah.
Separate from this.
Yeah.
And that was to focus just on the Page pipe stave, to take that to, up through as far with the engineering as they can.
Mhm.
It's obviously not going to get through DOT permitting in the next 3 months. But to also do the survey, because we know that's going to be required, and that's a discrete chunk of work that they can just send their team out and get that done. We'll have a tangible deliverable from that.
Mhm.
Was there anything else in the 30,000? It was really just,
No, that's pretty much it, which is a lot of work.
yeah.
Do that preliminary plans to look at. Stop conversation.
And that has
Obviously, the phase 3 of the article money is where the beat goes on the ball, we actually see the design.
Mhm.
And we actually get to Paul, and then they get to bring that to MassDOT to get their comments, which is very important, because design can change dramatically based on MassDOT's
Right.
comments that they have. So that would be really helpful. Phase, they call it task 3, it's the phase 2 part of the pipe station. And then obviously the other part of the article is our corridor study of Main Street, which is a start. They're going to build the TIP, which is really important. We have to get to this level. We want to really be serious about the TIP program and to have a corridor study done. And we're going to take that, which they mentioned during our meeting with the state safe route school, is before they look at pipe state, want to make sure it's coherent to the whole. Make sure we're looking at the whole corridor as a whole. They don't want to design pipe state with certain specs that doesn't meet our corridors. Like, would like to know that prior to that, but that's fine too. So it's an important part because they both relate to each other in reality.
Mhm.
Yeah, and actually, as you mentioned that, I just want to make clear because it could have all jumbled together, but we had the meeting with MVPC guys, but we also had a separate, tele meeting with the, grant administrators, Safe Routes to School. That was last Wednesday, I think. And, we've been seeking that for a little while, to get some feedback on our application, you know, how was the application in general. I mean, my takeaway was it was a good application. They obviously emphasize how competitive the funding round is, and most projects don't get in their first year. In terms of what could strengthen the application, they said that they look for the schools to be really engaged with the Safe Routes to Schools program year round and not just at grant time. So there are things that they look for them, their partner schools to do in terms of communicating to families on opportunities for, non-vehicular transport things. One thing where it sounded like we fell short in the application was we weren't really able to articulate how many people would actually be walking to school as a result, which we knew going in. That was a very fair critique because it doesn't connect to very many housetops.
But not so fair.
Well, not in our instance, in order to solve that problem, you'd have to spend a lot more than $1 million. Yeah. But I mean, fair in terms of like how they, you can't argue with that. We're not connecting a lot of houses to the school with what we're proposing.
But not safe to, we don't think it's as safe as it should be to cross, so people don't want to cross there, so they're looking for numbers, because traffic engineers love numbers. So if you have 600 kids crossing it, that's fantastic. We don't have 600 kids crossing there, because they wouldn't cross there anyhow, because it's not the safest crossing in town. So we're saying if we build it, not 600 kids will show up, but more people will hopefully start walking if we build a safer crossing. And they use numbers to decide, and I didn't like that, because numbers, if you build it, they will come. Well, if you don't build it, they're not coming. So you can't just use numbers as a reason to say, well, we don't think you should fund it because you have a low volume of people crossing there. It's low volume of people crossing, because nobody wants to cross there. So it's, that's why we're here. That's why I asked for money, so people can cross, they come.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of we knew that we were gonna come short on that. But we don't think it should be a big deciding factor on approving it.
I mean, they were definitely, encouraged us to resubmit in the fall and thought that, this basic application could be something they would look favorably on in the future.
Little tweaks, nothing big, it's all just tweaks to make the application more appealing.
They started the conversation by commending us on the number of letters of support. Really clear that there was a lot of community support, so they
Definitely have support.
Yeah.
Definitely have support, we say.
So I'm 90% done a write-up. I started writing a memo actually over the weekend. I worked on it some more today. I didn't quite finish it, but I am working on a single memo that ties together each of these into a single cohesive, because I think you guys, are following everything because you're here at all these meetings. But I certainly understand that this is developed quickly between the different, locations, the different earmarks, the different grants. So I actually got a call about a couple of Fridays ago from a staff person in Senator Tarr's office, Mary Ann Ney. I believe she's on the select board in Boxford. And so we talked for about a half an hour. She was really interested in hearing what we're doing and had been approached by a constituent interested in street safety. So I walked her through. I said, we're doing this. And I told her I will send her something. So, because it's just all sounds like a lot of words, but we are in fact doing a lot of good work. So I'll finish that memo, as soon as I can in the next day or two and send that to the senator's office. I'll send it to you. I'm actually putting in some maps to kind of help people understand what we're looking at. And then we can turn that into like a web, add that to the web page so that people who are interested in this can better follow along with what we're doing, what we're trying to do.
Good.
Just correct because I missed anything.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna do that one here.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Jim's pointing out when we get to the capital, to the article recommendations. This one will need a recommendation from the board, but also where Wayne's here, we've got the page HVAC as well as the sidewalk plow.
Okay, let's start knocking them off. Okay, so, Angus, you wanna, brief us on how, what you, how you think the HVAC would fly in terms of ARPA?
It's, it was, Jenny who brought this to me and I said, geez, that's a great idea. We hadn't really talked about it, but, her thought was that it would have applied even before you get to revenue replacement based on some of the police eligible,
Yeah, it makes sense to
It made
me.
a lot of sense, and so she suggested it last week, and I said, heck, I haven't talked to the board, so she offered to put together the request that you have in front of you. And so I said, I'll float it, and if the board's inclined, then maybe it comes off the warrant altogether.
And what's the total or the current?
Well, 115, but,
115,
do you want to just elaborate on kind of how you came to that?
Yeah, sure. So is the opera money, is that by American?
Yeah,
So I don't know if Samsung American or Mitsubishi is an American product. So we need to be careful because I don't know how many American made HVAC units are out there. I don't know if you've heard of any. I don't even know if Train is made in America anymore either.
Well, so, this, kind of interesting. I mean, I have no idea how this actually pan out, but, Mitsubishi and Train are in a partnership now. Train, is using Mitsubishi's product. I think Mitsubishi actually has at least one manufacturing plant. I don't know which products are made here in the US, but I think they have at least one manufacturing plant in the US.
But we have to get that detailed better. I mean, they probably have-
that may be a hard one to be certain of,
Yeah, they might have Mitsubishi of America, but just like, that's.
Well, yeah, Mitsubishi.
That's the main office.
Yeah, exactly.
Comes overseas. So I just want to be careful on that, because say buy America, I think steel is easier to buy in America than any other electronic component.
Right.
We're looking for, including the split units, the compressor, we might be really limited, and we definitely don't want to buy an inferior, not saying the United States makes inferior products, we make great products, but we don't want to be limited to one product only that we don't have a track record. We don't want to go back to what we were before, because we were forced to buy a product that we didn't feel that it was, met our standards. So
my guess is if we need to adhere to the Buy America in order to use those funds on the HVAC project, is that we should.
Is that a deal killer?
Yeah, my guess is that's a deal killer. That's my guess.
I'm just not sure if there's an American version.
No, there isn't. No, there's no significant manufacturer, US manufacturer of many splits, or nobody who's real good.
And it's 99% of the cost of the units, 90% of the cost of article labors.
Well,
The products itself, the products itself is gonna be pricey. Whatever the labor is, 30% of it, maybe.
so when I first talked with Bob Danforth, he had a price from a distributor for just
The unit.
the unit. Now, I don't know if that included the, the four distribution heads or whatever.
The force.
Yeah, the modules were the interior modules. But it was like $34,000, I think is what he said for that alone.
Yeah.
From a distributor. So I think, my guess is that labor costs are actually gonna exceed, they may exceed the component costs.
Okay. Well, preventing waste doesn't help. If we want to put a warranty, talk about a warranty on it, that's gonna increase.
So will we be able to figure this out in order to make a decision about?
I would say, it does not sound like we would be wise to take anything off the warrant.
Yeah.
I think if the board was inclined to consider funding it with ARPA, we could continue to look at that next couple of weeks, but I wouldn't want to have to decide the next 40 days to remove something from the warrant. But maybe we keep it on the warrant, maybe if by April 24th, we think there's a viable way to do it, and we just pass over the article.
So do we have a list of potential ARPA projects? I mean, I think this would be a good one if it worked out, but I just want to make sure there isn't something larger that, you know, we want to, you know.
I mean, you know, all we've really talked about is that, you know, the board's support of a one-time cost, not any kind of operating cost or things like that. And so, you know, I would look at the capital program as the list of potential projects. Whether that's a part of a larger project, like a additional contribution to Middle Street Bridge, for instance, or whether that's to pick off one or more of the smaller capital projects. But that doesn't limit you. But in terms of all the discussions that we've had, or those handful of discussions we've had, it's always been focused on the capital program. So the board hasn't ever specified like any specific projects.
Mhm. And remind me the deadline or when the funds.
It's got to be fully allocated by the end of the calendar year 2024, fully expended 2 years after that, so
Okay.
December 31st, 2026.
Okay, well, I would suggest that we at least dig a little deeper to see if there are any, is the ARPA, do we know that the fine details that, you know, sometimes when you're unable to find a product that if it's unavailable by, you know, US manufacturers, then there's loopholes that you don't have to. I don't know. I don't know that. I just, in certain situations, that's the case. And so I don't know if that applies here or not, but I think we should at least investigate it. This would be a good project if that works.
Yeah, and I'll have to follow up with DLA to get more detail from them on the Buy American.
I mean, sometimes it has to be 51%, you know, whatever, yeah. So what is it, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
Okay. But keep it on the warrant as it is now, yeah, you can always get rid of it. Okay, where are we now?
Go back to E.
Talk about PFAS some more. There's a lot of acronyms on here today. HVAC, ARPA, PFAS, EPA, COLA, ERS. That's a hard one.
Since Wayne is here, did you guys want to talk about the sidewalk plow?
Oh, okay. Well, we were at the FinCom meeting where the plow was discussed pretty extensively, and I came around, so anything we want to further ask Wayne about that?
I think I've heard everything 3 times at least, so I'm sure there's some nugget there that we haven't heard yet, we can't think what it is.
Okay, so someone want to make a motion to approve that?
Yeah, make a motion to approve the sidewalk plow.
What article is it?
It's 25.
Yeah, currently shown as Article 25 in the proposed or the.
Right,
work in
it's
progress.
currently it's 25.
Yeah.
Okay. Second.
Further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is that the only one for Wayne?
We're,
I don't know.
where's the chart, so we know what,
Page 64.
64, okay.
The only other one for Wayne would have been the
The 113 corridor.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got that, we've got,
So do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, that one in the page check.
So I move that we approve Article 31, funds for Route 113 corridor planning for $59,500.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I move that we approve Article 20, appropriation of PEG reserve revenues of $90,000.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So should we vote on the Page School HVAC? Okay.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, I move that we approve the Article 27, expenditure of $115,000 for the Page School HVAC system replacement.
Second.
further,
So, yeah, so the one thing we did talk about too is the fact that there, is, incentive money available through, National Grid. And we probably qualify for it and, based on their standard amount, it's a prescriptive program, so, they pay standard amount is $25,000 $2,500 per ton of heating or cooling. A ton is 12,000 BTUs per hour. And the unit that is currently there, we don't have, a design or, proposed an engineered plan for replacement. So the current unit that's currently there is, we're told by the folks at Pentucket School District, based on their documentation, that it's an 8-ton unit, which, if that's true, and if the replacement, if it was a 1-for-1 replacement in terms of, capacity, that says that there'd be, $20,000 available as a, utility incentive. I think it's not guaranteed at all at this point, but it's highly likely that, that we'd be able to get that. And also, I think, Wayne, I think you acknowledge that, this 115 is a pretty fat number.
It is.
But it's better that it be a fat number than the other way around.
So we could get back into the incentive and the, over exaggerated electrician bill,
Yeah.
fully grant at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We still might be fully pretty sure.
To be quite honestly, my personal feeling is that in the end, this will be $75,000 or something like that. But I wouldn't put money on that, but that's kind of what I would expect.
We just have to make sure we can find a HVAC guy who will work for prevailing wage.
Yeah.
We're in a challenge,
Right,
they're not
right.
plentiful up there.
Yeah.
That's, we was hoping.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's fine. So we still have the police cruiser, Article 28.
Yeah.
So is that 25,000?
Thanks, Wayne. Have a good night.
Good night.
I'm sorry.
That there was some discussion back and forth.
Yeah, the issue was it's been removed from the FY 24 operating budget. So that was
Oh,
what
okay.
McGuire had said. So
Okay.
he always intended to go forward with this article.
Okay. So I move that we approve Article 28 for the purchase of a police cruiser supplemental funding of $25,000.
Second. I do have a question.
Okay, further discussion?
Angus, I'm assuming that, I talked with Mike about this, but it was in the midst of other conversations, so I really didn't ask as much as I should have. This is back a month or more ago. But I'm guessing this is probably another hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right.
Yeah, he said they've been working out well, and it only adds, it's like, I think he said 2,000 or 3,000, it's not
Yeah.
that much.
Yeah, yeah,
So, that's interesting.
yeah. I wonder when his timing is.
Well, he can't, I think he can put in an order, we can't sign a contract until the funds are appropriated, so. As long as it's under contract, we could encumber the funds.
So is this in the special?
Yeah,
Yeah, so we, unfortunately, we can't, because of timing, we can't include this in a Green Communities grant.
no, because the operating, yeah.
Yeah, that's, and there was another program, but it looks like that program is no longer, supporting hybrids. It's just, all electric or plug-in hybrids.
I'm gonna vote on that.
All those in favor? Aye.
All right,
So,
Okay, what about the, as long as we have the chart up and,
So we still have Article 24, transfer CPC funds.
Yes, we do, so, yeah, I don't know if the answer we have is definitive, or if we should keep researching that, but.
well, he's still
Well, it's
working with the
projected.
172, 178?
Well,
No,
the
it was-
question is whether in addition to that existing balance, whether this could include the amount of projected revenues for next year.
Right, yeah, we talked about that last meeting, and we didn't have that number accurately, right?
Well, we have the number that's in the article. That was like 60,904, something like that.
Mhm.
But that's an estimate
Yeah,
or a projected number. So we did reach out to the Community Preservation Coalition, and they were cautious about that. We haven't talked to DOR about it to see if it's allowed or not allowed, but
So, I mean, this seems like it's a standard protocol with trust. Is it that they're doing the prior year allocation from the CPA?
I honestly haven't had time to research it.
I mean, it seems like that's,
Why-
seems like that's like, and so I mean, I personally think we ought to go ahead with the number that we know at this point and just assume that we're always gonna be lagging 1 year behind in transferring money from the CPA.
from the previous year.
Yeah, for the previous year to the trust.
I mean, my sense is you could do it. The only, but the specific number, you can't put any stock in that because it's just a projected number. And, the particular caution from the CP Coalition Boston was, the state match is very difficult to anticipate. So
Like, for
maybe you
example,
transfer more than 10%, or maybe it's less than 10%. And then if the goal is to get to 10%, you're then doing a subsequent year kind of true up anyway. So you don't know what 10% is until the year's closed out.
And when is that?
Well, no, until the fiscal year's closed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I mean, I'm guessing, Wendy, that there's some concern that something will come up and will be 1 year's worth of CPA, housing fund short of the goal.
No, because we could apply for undesignated fund if that situation happened.
Okay,
We were just trying to make this a clean,
but is that gonna have to be done every year anyway?
yeah,
Yeah,
but we were under the impression that, you could do the current year. And maybe we still can. Should we just make the amount, the existing balance plus 1 year, and then if we decide it can't be done, just make it less at town meeting?
and we'll know before town meeting.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've done a little research. We haven't had any more time than we've had. So we went to the CP Coalition, but we can ask,
So would
Mass
you know
DOR.
her? Do you
Yeah.
think she would give us
I would think so.
Okay.
That's got to have come up.
Yeah.
And I had,
but see, remember, this is not a number that's always set in stone. Some years the legislature throws in an extra 20 million and divvies
Yeah.
that up with
Yeah.
divvies that up. Some years they don't. I even noticed it this weekend. I saw the signs in Danvers that they're voting on whether to have a CPA, and so all of these things change the amounts till the end of the year. Why can't you just put that money in if you really want it in the fall?
Make the transfer in the fall?
No,
We
we don't
even-
make this.
Yeah, we wouldn't know in the fall either,
You wouldn't know by then?
for FY 24, no. No, we wouldn't even have set the tax rate at the fall town meeting. So you wouldn't know what your 3% is without setting the tax rate, without valuations being, there's a lot of, I mean. it's
No,
one thing
but
to
you're
have-
talking about this year's money and the
No,
match.
No, we're talking about next year's. Aren't
Yeah, so
No,
we're talking about the amount that's approved at town meeting
Right.
in article,
we? For
whatever.
next year.
Yeah. I mean, the idea was so that voters will know it's that 10%, it's that number, that's what's going into the trust. I mean, you just kind of lose the connection if you do it separately from, the prior year. I think from the town meeting vote. But, I mean, if you think there's a chance we can get resolution on this,
I think, I definitely think we can. It's just
Yeah.
with everything else we've been.
No,
doing,
no, I get it.
It's not.
so should we approve it, assuming it works, and then back off if we find out it doesn't, or just wait?
I'm fine with approving it and then changing if we have to. But quite honestly, I just think we ought to just lag by a year and then we don't have this discussion. Because every year, aren't we gonna go through the same process?
Yeah, it's always gonna be an estimate. Like I said, you're always, then the following year, if the goal is to be exactly 10%, you're always gonna either need to give some back or take some more, because you're never gonna hit it exactly, because it's an estimated number and there's just so much you.
Yeah,
can't
so
possibly
if we
know at
just-
that stage.
If we just use the number that's currently in the chart and then assume that each year we're gonna be behind 1 year, then we don't go through this discussion every year, because otherwise, I guarantee you, we're gonna have the same discussion next year and the year after. and the year
Yeah,
after.
I was just hoping to get some guidance from the DOR if they have, what they advise other towns to do, but, if that's gonna be the way I just feel like it'll be confusing if we have one article that says 10% for community housing.
Well, Wendy, so let's go ahead.
you're
and
giving
do what you
people too
suggested.
much credit. That
Too
they're
much
going
credit that
to,
they're gonna be confused.
no, that they're gonna sit there and figure that out.
Okay,
They won't even know.
all right. Fine,
But I mean, what I'm hearing, what I thought I heard Rick say is, it sounds like you'd be open to putting the 60,904 on top of that number, and it could be reduced if that doesn't end up,
Sure, yeah,
But you're right, there's gonna need to be an annual kind of reconciliation of what was transferred relative to what the 10% actually was.
so how does that work on the CPA fund itself? I mean, if we say 10% is this,
It's an estimate.
Right, so then
And
how does
DOR
that-
tells us that's part of, there's that sweep at the end of the year, because there's things that go into, there's the, and I forget the name of it, there's the budgeted reserve, but there's the other amount that's basically like the leftover.
for the 3%ers.
no, you mean the state match? No.
No, it's not the
No, in the town meeting, in the revenue booklet at the end, there's a column that says, budgeted reserve, but there's another column, and I can't remember.
I can't either, but I know.
But it's basically that, fudge factor's not the right, but it's the amount that wasn't appropriated, that then kind of gets swept into the general fund and then reallocated in a way. And I wish Jenny was on here because she would have better language to use than I do, but in a way, it doesn't really matter what the numbers are in the article, because the 10% by statute has to go to each of the buckets anyway, and it is what it is. And there's so many factors between local assessed value, local tax rate, state match, supplemental state match. So there's the undesignated and then there's the reserve. And that's it. So whatever, in fact, I think there could be warrant article for the regular article, it doesn't even have numbers, that just
That's
says
what I was
10%.
wondering. Yeah,
I think that this town, and that's not the only one, I think this is used numbers, because people like numbers, but the numbers really don't mean, as a non-accountant, I don't think they really mean anything, other than giving people some sense of roughly what's gonna happen, because they're just estimates. You don't know what the state match, you don't know what the local is gonna raise, you don't know about abatements, I mean, there's a million moving parts, and I do know that, Bobby Joe has told us in the past that 2/3 of the questions she gets in her office are related to CPA. Like, it's very complicated. So this is just one small piece of it. But I assume there's an answer. We just haven't, we ran it up the wrong flagpole because, we did get a response, but it was kind of a
yeah, they're not.
mealy mouth kind of response.
That's been my
Like,
experience.
oh, well, you should be cautious, and they didn't recommend doing it.
So going forward, could we just do a percentage instead of dollar amounts, or do you think people would not be comfortable?
I wouldn't want to start this cycle,
No.
but I think we could. We
makes
could look at that
sense
for
to
next
me.
year. Yeah, because it's like last year, the numbers were way too high, and that ended up being a problem with the recap. It created a headache with the recap because the estimates were too high.
Mhm.
So they tell you to estimate low.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
So could we do that for all of the,
That's what I'm
all the
recommending.
transfers yeah,
Yeah, 10%.
we
Yeah.
could use a percentage, 10, 10, 10, and
Yeah.
65,
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, that's what the statute says. It's not. Yes.
Yeah, well, as you said, at town meeting there, traditionally, we always have an exact number.
Yeah.
But that could be in the rationale, right? The FinCom thing could list up,
Yeah.
what we estimate it would be.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have to be part of the motion. All right, so what do we want to do with this one? Rick, it sounds like you just want to transfer the balance and not worry about it.
Yeah, well, I guess, we don't have, if we could just, the reason why we don't want to do it is 10% this year, Angus, is.
Because the warrant's gotta be signed and published in 2 weeks, and I don't need another discussion about it.
Okay, yeah.
Even a small one.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
We've got going on.
Yeah, it's.
Not mention a revote from FinCom and.
Yeah.
Okay, that's that. Yeah. We don't need to redo anything that's already been done. It just seems to me, I'd be comfortable with just going with the number that we know for certain, and the money will get transferred there, a year later, but.
So then if we go to 10% a year later, then we're gonna have the prior balance plus 10%.
Right.
That year, and then
Right.
going forward,
Right.
10%.
Right.
That's fine.
That would be a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Because then it's
Yeah.
just an accounting exercise.
Yeah,
Right,
And
that
it's
makes
by the
Right.
accountants, which is kind of who should.
Right, well, I just think we probably spent a total between tonight and other times, we probably spent 45 minutes talking about this so far. And it just, I don't think we ought to be doing that every year. I'm afraid that's what will happen, is we'll end up debating it every year.
Well, I don't think so. Once we have a system, we won't have to debate it every year. This is the first year we're doing it. But at any rate, I think that's a good way to handle it. So I move that we approve Article 24, transfer there should be CPA funds to the Affordable Housing Trust of $172,178.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And that's it, right? As far as we can vote on?
Well, the whole budget.
Yeah, but we've never done that. You could do it, it's an article, but, and we are gonna need to go through the budget reconciliation issues.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Good. Back to.
I was good with all of them. Not thrilled about the reserve fund, but I'm not gonna be here, so you people can deal with it. Cause this is the year you're going to need it, and
Okay, so this, all of the numbers, as you saw in the transmittal memo, these would all be adjusted with the additional 1% COLA to go from 2 to 3. So those are not shown in here. That's something I'll work with Jenny on tomorrow. We'll get that built in and resend to FinCom. But I sent FinCom the same information that you have, so they know that that'll change. But leaving aside that, the issues were, I mean, they're all highlighted. Do you want to go through them, or do you want to just ask if you have questions?
These are all
Very minor.
discussed at the FinCom meeting, right? Or at least since the FinCom.
No, these were all discussed at the FinCom.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
The one thing I did, make a change, on the town clerk, the initial proposed budget, I had cut 200 from that. On further review, I think I should not have cut 200 from that, so that's the 6,800 instead of 6,600 for the board registrar salary and wages. I had been using some older numbers on kind of wages for the poll workers, and so I think that 200 is. And so I
So
don't
what do
think.
you have on him?
$200 worth, I guess. It was you can see the town clerk compensation number. I think it was a duplicate, like it was.
I had assumed that he double counted that because the delta was 200, but
I
he
see.
had, it was actually the
Exactly.
underlying that was different.
Okay,
So that's not something it came up when they reviewed that budget, several weeks ago.
Put a sticky note on his computer screen,
He did.
laying out the actual number.
So then the police cruiser, you can see the change with the zeroing out that, and I did confirm with Dwyer, that is his intent. Whittier's just the housekeeping with the updated numbers. Oh, I'm very sorry to report, with veterans, the new resident who passed away.
oh, no.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so, because we got the veterans assessment last week and it didn't have that person, so we said, oh, well, passed away. So, very sad to report that, but that's why,
It was updated.
yeah, so the updated number I'm recommending, and this will be new information to FinCom when we meet tonight, is 6,000.
What page you want?
This is,
32.
so instead of the 24,240, that's no longer needed. As you know, if someone new were to move into town, we would pay it by law. We're required to pay it regardless of what we budget. So the budget is just our attempt to be as accurate as we can, but it's a dynamic area.
Okay, so the number shown here currently is, 24,240.
Correct.
What should it be now?
6,000.
So, we'll be back down to 6, okay.
Yeah.
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 Which makes perfect sense, but I just,
Yeah.
okay.
And then with recreation, I know we talked about that before. I've been in pretty regular correspondence with Brad on that. And, I told him I'm holding the line on the budget that they recommended and that I brought forward. That's the 38,272. I did meet with Rob earlier today. And, he understands my concerns about zeroing out wages. I think his intent is to make a commensurate reduction to the expense line. The idea being he's looking to basically ensure that the Park and Rec Commission is going to utilize the revolving fund and not just sit on it. And I did tell him, I don't disagree with that intent, but in my opinion, given some of the fact that, it's been a little bit of a long process, but this was the best and most thorough budget that commission has put forward in many, many years. And so I did tell them it's an elected commission. This is what they voted on in their public meeting. I do show more deference to elected budgets than others. And I am not comfortable after the fact playing around with the numbers. And that if that's his intent, I really asked if he could contact them directly and get me out of the middle of it. I would appreciate that. They do have Park and Rec does have a meeting this Thursday. So we'll see how that goes with FinCom Wednesday and Park and Rec Thursday. But the other dynamic, of course, course, is Brad having stepped down, where he's not running for reelection. So there's going to be basically 3 commissioners who haven't, in my observation, really had much to do with the budget at all. I just don't want to be in a position of inadvertently shorting them. And Rob correctly pointed out, this is an increase, it's not a short, but if you include the 15,000 from the fall town meeting, that's really what they needed this year. So I just don't want to get, also I'm concerned about sending a signal to a new commission that doesn't really matter what they vote, because it can change. Even though it can, I don't know. To me, it's small money. I would be more comfortable with the budget that I brought forward. I know we talked about that last time, and so I expect you'll probably hold the line on that. But I just want to make you aware of what's going on. It's still an active area of discussion. But Rob did agree with me about the concern about not zeroing out wages.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're offering someone a job, but you're making a commitment to pay them, it shouldn't be based on your ability to raise fees.
Right.
And summer rec is a different instance where there was an existing balance there. There's not your ability to pay your staff is not in question because there's an existing balance.
Isn't there part of their budget in the expense line that could be targeted for revolving funds?
It definitely could.
Yeah.
I just don't know if this is the year to do it, because even though we've made a lot of progress, it's still a dynamic situation. We did a lot of work, and Wayne did a lot of work, but I'm still not 100% sure that we've accounted for everything. And then there's things that, I did have Jenny pull some records on prior use of revolving funds, their revolving fund. And, there was something a couple of years ago with the septic for the snack shack that needed some significant repairs. That was paid to revolving fund. So there are things that can come up that aren't in the operating budget and that might be necessary or at least important. So I don't know how FinCom will go. Rob felt pretty confident that they're going to support a reduction, and if they do, that's totally their prerogative. But in terms of the budget I'm putting forward, I'm standing with what I proposed and what they proposed, by the way.
Yeah.
And then the others are just, let's see, let me just read the downs here. So the FICA, that's not an exact number. That'll change a little bit once we build in the COLA, but that's basically it. And then I got a slightly updated number on insurance and bonds. It's about $2,000 more than what you could refer back in February.
Okay.
So I think of all of this, the park and rec, I think is the only one that represents any kind of, potential substantive disagreement.
Okay, we good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. We still got a whole alphabet to get through here.
Oh, look, we already did F, G, H, I, J, and K. We only have half an alphabet.
Yeah. L is just a scheduling thing. Did you want to suggest who you think would be a good temporary town moderator?
I think we should ask Mike McCarron. We need to vote on that?
I can do so.
No, but I want to make, if that's the will of the board, definitely because we'd like to be able to start working,
I'm good.
Yeah, good. So
I thought it was a vote.
It is. It is.
Okay.
It is
At town meeting.
at town meeting, at each of the two.
Twice. We get to have 2 elections for temporary town.
What if the second vote fails because it's a good job?
That's always possible.
So I included that background between Tim and Jim. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I have a whole speech.
do you really?
I do now.
Wow.
But it does definitely speak to the value of unanimity, because if there was a second nomination and then you gotta do hands ballot.
I already have ready to print.
We could spend a lot of time, so I think if there was it's important to have this board on the same page.
I don't think they're gonna be people jumping up and down. and all that.
You don't think everyone's gonna be excited to be town auditor?
No.
I want to ruin my evening.
So we will formally, request that, we do think he's interested in that.
Yeah, he did indicate he would be interested if we asked him to.
So, and then in terms of a schedule for a meeting, this is gonna depend on other people's availability, so we can't decide something tonight, but generally, do you agree we should be looking at something next week? For the joint meeting with FinCom?
Before the warrant business.
Yeah, well, really for two, although
I thought in the
I didn't
past
hear
we've done it
what you
after.
said, Wendy.
I said before the warrant closes. I thought we did it,
it's normally after.
yeah.
The only, I guess the question is, would you be comfortable signing the warrants, even though as of right now, all you saw was an earlier draft that had some issues? Or do you need to convene again? Because that was part of what got me thinking about next week, is since, because we have working draft warrants that are pretty far along, but they're not there yet. And so normally by this point in the cycle, I think you would have seen, them that were closer to the final draft. So, I guess that's do you need to convene again to sign and post the warrants? Because if so, then you're gonna need to meet next week, because they gotta be posted to 10. And if you're meeting next week anyway, it would make sense to roll in the other.
Got it.
If you don't need to meet again to sign the warrants, then we could stick with what we had envisioned initially, which was a meeting sometime the week of the 17th, prior to town meeting, to review the motions.
Okay, well, the warrants are going to accurately represent everything that we've done up to this point.
Yeah.
Is there any legal reason that we need to meet again to review the final compilation?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And if there was, then we need to do that. But it could be like a 5-minute meeting or a 10-minute meeting instead of, turning it into a bigger meeting.
Yeah,
So our next regularly scheduled meeting
Is
is
the 10th.
the 10th,
Yeah,
and that's when the warrant has to be posted.
yeah.
it has to be posted by 5 p.m. by close of business.
I don't know, but I wouldn't want to take any chances on
Yeah,
that.
okay.
All right, it seems like it makes sense to meet next week then. And then just make it the joint meeting with everybody. Is that what you're proposing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm also, writing the motions is a whole different thing. I mean, I don't know. Unfortunately, I've just got another week this week with a lot of meetings. And last week I spent dozens of hours in meetings. It's very hard to do all we're doing in meetings. So, like tomorrow, I'm not going to get anything done tomorrow. So Wednesday is going to be the same as tomorrow in terms of like work product, because I don't have time in meetings like a lot. So I don't know, I'm concerned about, if we set a date and then like, am I here till 1:30 in the morning on Friday again doing motions, because that's the first chance I get. I don't want to be in that situation.
Well, you tell us what you think makes the most sense.
I think if you legally need to, I think it would be more comfortable to have a meeting, after the 10th, have the joint meeting, because also just the logistics of putting that together with Tim, with Mike McCarron, with FinCom. I haven't even pulled them on their availability.
No, because the week of 17th.
It's school vacation week, right? It's school vacation week, so that's probably not going to work for at least some.
So is there anybody who, if we aren't legally required to meet, to review everything compiled together, is there anybody who feels that we absolutely have to do that before signing the warrant?
No, but to figure out if we're legally required is another project.
So,
Well, that's a quick question, Tim. If you are, then you have to.
right, so
I just don't know.
why don't we grab a time next week that we can cancel if we don't have to meet?
I mean, right now, I'm available, other than the Whittier Tech meeting on the 6th, which I may or may not go to, that advisory board dinner. That's the only evening meeting I have on my calendar for next week. So I have flexibility to meet, and would have no concern with like a short meeting. But I would be concerned about blowing that into a bigger meeting, because I just don't know if we're gonna be ready with motions and things.
Yeah,
All right, so then it could just be a short meeting to.
Yeah, just to
Review the
review,
warrant.
sign,
Yeah.
and post the warrant, yeah.
Why don't we just plan on?
Yeah,
that?
because we are, I mean, we're close, it's, but also I haven't sent it to Tim, so
So-
even once I'm finished my review, I gotta send it to Tim, make sure he can get his edits, done, which I'm sure he will.
okay, so I have tentative plans to not be around Monday, Tuesday, and so I prefer not to change that.
Mhm.
Is Wednesday, does that work for,
Works for me.
Archie, does that work for you? Angus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wednesday the 5th, yeah.
Let's see, Affordable Housing Trust meeting,
What time?
7 or 6.
That's it, gonna be a short meeting, you want to do 5:30?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
5:30 for the 5th, if it's just going to be meeting to sign the warrant.
So I like this is a select board meeting going into schedule 5:30 to 6, period.
I'll hold you to that.
Well, we'll be booted out of here at 6 by the trust, so. So you'll send the package around normally.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I'm really, I tried to get it done for this packet, and I just ran out of steam, so. And I could see Jim looking at the red lines. I mean, I made it a certain way through, I just didn't make it through all of it.
Okay, so it shouldn't be a lot to get.
No, it shouldn't, and I really gotta get that done so I can send it to Tim, so he can get his review. So, yeah, it would go out, I'll send out what we've got at the end of this week, and if that doesn't have Tim's comments, I'll just say it doesn't yet have Tim's comments.
So our sole mission is a hasty review and signing of the warrant.
That's
A
right.
thoughtful review and signing of the warrant.
Okay, that's better. A hasty, thoughtful.
But yeah, I mean, Rick, what you said is exactly right. Substantively, it's exactly what you've been talking about for months. It's just the wordsmithing. Many of them are routine articles.
I was gonna say, I wrote
Yeah, a lot.
90%.
Yeah.
Wait, was that said to give us confidence? No, I'm just kidding. Of course it does.
Copy and paste from last time. It's really easy. Let's say, yeah, first 13 articles, are pretty much annual standard.
We're closing it. All right, good. So then in terms of the joint meeting, to review motions,
Just be our next meeting
uh,
at the beginning,
that would be great.
yeah,
It's often been
maybe 17.
integrated into a regular board meeting, so that would be the 10th.
Oh, the 10th.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like doing it that way.
You wanna have another meeting?
No, but I don't wanna do anything else at the other meeting. Everyone says, oh, it's fine, and then
I have a
we talk,
prediction.
and then Casey will bring up some arcane point, and it'll be an hour about something that
What's the item that usually gets all the discussion?
Or any other action related to
The one that Tim has had to defend.
Yeah.
Every single.
I'm sure it'd be really quick, Archie.
I don't believe it, but okay.
Everyone in the room should have reviewed all the articles multiple times.
Archie, you should be savoring these last opportunities.
I try to save you from yourself.
How's that going?
It's not working, I'm trying.
Right, is that a decision?
Yeah,
Yep, I'll send them to, FinCom and to, thank Karen. And to Tim.
Okay, so what day did we say we were gonna try?
Monday the 10th is what we're gonna aim for.
when we already have a meeting, so.
Okay, but we can't have a executive session that day.
Why?
Well, because we used to only have one executive session every like 6 months. Now we have one every single day.
Every day.
That's the way it used to be.
Every
There used to be no, would it be like 5 executive sessions a year? Now we have one all the time and it's an hour and a half. And it'll run long and everyone else will be waiting here. We don't have to do executive session every single week.
I'm not arguing for it.
I'll save you from yourself.
Okay,
I think everybody can accept that. We can get by that meeting. If we don't need an executive session, we don't need an executive session. Sounds good.
Or if we do, we can be out by 7.
That's more realistic.
Yeah. All right, what page are we on?
Item M,
Which would be,
the reappointment of animal control officer for FY 24.
page 73. So I didn't realize that this was a separate thing. So we just have the animal control officer perform the function of the inspector of animals,
Yeah.
but it could be anybody, it sounds like.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Like
interesting.
Sam is the animal inspection officer for Groveland, but the animal control officer is, I believe, an officer.
Oh,
in
interesting.
Groveland PD.
So do we know that,
Kale?
Yeah, she's done this as
She-
part of her.
but she's good with doing it again?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, I reached out to
Yeah,
Chief
okay.
Dwyer last
All right.
week.
And this is part of her contract or
Yeah.
part of
Yep.
the contract? Okay.
Okay, so I move we appoint Caleb Preventure as the animal inspection officer, animal control officer for FY 24.
Well, don't we need to nominate the inspector of animals specifically?
Yeah,
Or what, Angus, what are we?
Yeah, you're nominating
Okay.
inspector.
okay, for as the inspector, okay, so sorry, I'm going back and forth between the agenda and the actual content, so, okay, so I move that we reappoint Caleb Preventure as the animal inspection officer for FY 24.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those graphs or the map is interesting. I had never seen that before.
Yeah, no, I hadn't either. I reached out to Dwyer last week, letting him know we'd received this letter and I'd be bringing it forward tonight. And if he had any additional information he wanted to share, and he sent me this. I thought it was terrific. I hadn't seen it before either. Really interesting, the time of day,
Yeah.
some of the year-on-year trends of when the calls are happening.
So, on the chart or the table, when it says day percent, I wasn't clear on what that referred to. It has calls, like a number of calls, and then the day percent.
Yeah, so if there's 4
I didn't
calls per
understand
day,
the thing, yeah.
that hour represented one
Yeah.
call, 1 out of 4, 25%. Yeah, that,
Yeah,
initially I was confused too.
Actually, if you look at those columns, Wendy, they
Yeah.
add up to 100. Every single one adds up to 100.
So it's just the percent of calls that came in that 24-hour period. I don't think it's a particularly meaningful statistic in this,
Yeah.
these numbers,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
If we saw that, 65% of calls were consistently coming in between the hours of noon and 1, then we would wonder why that was.
Yeah,
Well, that's when the rabid raccoons get out.
Right.
so do we also have to approve the contract with the animal control officer contract? That's what
That's-
Newbury for,
that-
That's
right?
different.
that's different. That is, yes, we will.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, we actually have Jenny and I have a Zoom call with them tomorrow night,
Mhm.
because we're looking at that. So, yeah, once we have a proposed contract or a draft contract, we'll put that on an agenda,
Mhm.
because that'll need to be executed by the end of June.
And that's an annual contract? or is that
No,
per
it's
year?
not, but it was a 3-year contract that provided, option for additional 2 1-year periods for extension.
Mhm.
So right now, we're in the 3rd of 3 years, so,
Okay.
it's basically haggling over money.
Mhm.
Did someone at the FinCom meeting have a problem with their performance? I thought the performance has been good.
Dwyer's been happy with it, but yeah, there was a question that Chair, Chris Wild asked, a couple of questions about it. He ended up voting in favor of their budget.
Okay, review of Essex retirement system request to consider a 5% retiree COLA for FY 24. I'd make a motion to not approve this.
Second,
Can't make a negative motion.
You gotta make a motion to approve
and then.
and either
vote.
have it fail for lack of a second or.
Okay.
And then have a negative.
Are you retracting the motion?
Oh, excuse me?
Are you retracting? your
Yes, I
motion?
am.
I'll make a motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Isn't that a way of?
Fails for lack of a second.
Mhm. All right,
Okay.
We will communicate that to Essex.
So, even though we voted on that, Mr. Chairman, I'm curious, thought processes.
Well, we voted to give our employees a 3% cost of living. The retirees are receiving a cost of living.
Which is 3%, which is 3%.
Correct. So it doesn't seem that we should be encumbering our taxpayers with a higher, higher ultimate, long-term, responsibility than our existing employees, that our actual employees at the moment. This is regardless of them saying it's not going to affect the required payment to the retirement system for the next coming year, it is ultimately increasing our obligation, so
Oh,
it has to be
absolutely,
paid
yeah,
at some
yeah,
point.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not coming
yeah,
from,
yeah.
I thought the answer was not particularly forthcoming. And no one else has, it seems kind of, I don't know what the word, unusual that there's, however many, towns in the system, and only Merrimack was the only other one to have voted on it, so it's obviously not that people aren't clamoring for it, that's all.
And Merrimack voted against.
I guess.
Yes, they did. Why do you feel what's your, obviously you don't agree?
Well, no, I'm interested in being educated. I mean, I have some thoughts about it, and I exactly aligned with what you just said, but then I have a counter thought, which is that the retirees are essentially on, for most people, at least once they've retired, they no longer in a position where they can improve their financial condition through, continued work. And so sometimes I wait, trying to maintain financial stability for people as they get older, that way.
Okay.
But I don't have a real hard to find position. I was trying to come around to my own, full set of thoughts on it. So when, do you have anything in
No,
that?
that's why.
Okay.
Just to be consistent with what we're
Yeah,
voting for our employees.
thanks.
Okay. Minutes on January 31, 2022 and February 7th, 2022. Any comments on those?
No, I move to approve the minutes of January 31st, 2022, and February 7th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
These are the last ones from FY 22.
So we're now caught up.
Today.
We are in the current fiscal year.
Wow.
But I mean, she had quite a few to work back through for the 22 fiscal year after our previous vendor just dropped us.
Yeah.
So, but we've got, I think we're in January. I think January's been done, so it's really February, March.
Nice.
Minutes. So we're quite caught up.
So was that a somewhat unceremonious dropping?
Well, the courts opened back up, and so she.
So her real day job came back.
A real day job.
Yeah, I think it was an issue of the timeliness was lagging more and more.
Right,
More
I remember that. Yeah.
responded and basically it was, she wasn't able to commit to improving that. So
Yeah.
we just,
I mean, it was, the court backlog has been immense.
Right.
And I don't think stenographers are in high demand when there wasn't much court going on, right? So,
good. So number of updates, like I said, meetings, I mean, that's some good meetings, but it all takes time. We had a number of meetings, MVPC, I mentioned earlier, that was really good. Had a meeting last Tuesday with the new DA, and his staff, that was with the, town administrators for the other two towns, as well as the two Pentucket administrators. We talked about Chapter 70, we talked about police reform, among other things, but those were really the main topics.
Why would the district attorney be talking about Chapter 70?
Well, it came out of so Chief Dwyer had invited me down to the Essex County Chiefs breakfast about a month ago. And that was down in Beverly, I believe. And it was mostly discussion on kind of pure public safety topics. And then Chief Eric Shears from Merrimack, stood up and made a really eloquent kind of pitch about Chapter 70 and how much it was squeezing out other needs, including public safety needs in the town of Merrimack. And he really said it very, very well. I later found out that he's actually a workout partner with Justin. I guess they're at the school. They're in the school gym together, I guess at 5 a.m. I was like, wow, that's really something. So I guess they've been talking all this time, and he's been learning from Justin about some of the inequities and challenges for regional schools, and really embraced this and started to recognize how this affected his department's interest. And so, yeah, he stood up in this big crowded room and made this really eloquent statement about it. And then I think the town administrator in I want to say Wenham stood up, and then a few minutes later I stood up, and because they were talking, the state legislators who were there were talking about budgetary impacts, and I was saying, like, if you know, this causes local taxes to be higher, and so maybe it doesn't show up on the state balance sheet, but it is affecting the residents of the Commonwealth anyhow. So it really was kind of neat, because it made everybody in the room, full police chiefs and public safety people, start thinking about Chapter 70 as something that they needed to be more concerned about too. So it ended up, you know, the day after, you know, I got this, or actually it was later that same day is when I got the outreach from the DA. Maybe he saw this as a jumping off point. It's not that he's got a direct path to help, but he was in the legislature for 8 years, and the next day after our meeting had a meeting with, I think he said, like the House Ways and Means and maybe the speaker. So, you know, getting it on his profile, you never know how those things play out. So it was a good meeting. We all felt we weren't totally sure what would come of it, but it's definitely an invitation that you accept when you get that. So that's all that was. Last Tuesday, we had kickoff for the hazard mitigation planning process. Rick was there, and were, I want to say, 8 or 9 other West Newbury department heads and staff who were very, very well represented. Everybody who's part of our hazard mitigation planning team was present. So I think it was very good. I've been to a lot of these kinds of things over the years, and I have to say, I think MVPC did a really nice job organizing it. The slides were very visually interesting. I thought they had a nice format that kept people engaged. You know, ours is largely going to be, at least initially, updating the one from 6 or 7 years ago. There's not wholesale new infrastructure, new hazards or whatever, but I thought they did a nice job. It was well attended by multiple towns. Friday we had, or the next is the Housing Trust Book session. Do you want to update the others on that?
Yeah, you were there, Archie. And so we just went over summarized the action plan, the draft action plan. Not too many comments during the meeting. Received a handful of comments to the email address after, just different ideas about different ways to increase affordable housing. So our plan is to incorporate comments and revisions into the action plan at our meeting on April 5th, and then make a short presentation at town meeting just to say what we're at.
I thought the ideas were all great. I did. I think you guys should be proud of how it's what you've accomplished already. It's good.
Yeah, it was interesting. We had the housing production plan meeting last week also, and a lot of the items in their action plan are the same that the Affordable Housing Trust came up with. So there'll be quite a bit of overlap there, which is good.
Unfortunately, there wasn't much, didn't get much public attention, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
But the material was excellent.
Yeah, it's very specific, very actionable.
Yeah.
It's not like pie in the sky.
Yeah.
It's very tangible, you know, things that are realistic and good.
Yeah, and it was great. We had a couple department heads come, even though they don't live in West Newbury, but feeling like it affected their employees and their constituents. So I appreciated having them here.
And Christine Marshall was there, Chief Dwyer was there.
Yep.
Wendy, commented on the housing production plan kickoff. I had to leave a few minutes early on Friday, but I thought that was very good
Yeah.
too. I think they kind of have to go through what is a housing production plan. So, but I thought they kind of dispatched that fairly quickly and was able to get to the meat of the meeting. But that seems like it's off to a very good start. I had overlooked mentioning earlier the meeting with Representative Ramos last Wednesday. Rick joined me for that. I think that was a good discussion. I think there was I was a little surprised her initial response on the Chapter 70 wasn't but I'll say there is a follow-up meeting that Justin's having with I think it's going to be Senator Carr. It's a number of the other legislators that represent the Pawtucket towns, including Representative Ramos. So I think that's going to be really important because we weren't, even though we provided the chart, Rick and I, even though we've just been on that Chapter 70 training for 4 hours on Monday, we weren't really, we don't work with this stuff every day. So I think it's going to be important for her and her counterparts to hear from Justin and from Greg LeBrack, who work with it all the time. To really make sure that, but I will say Rep. Ramos will be very, very pleased to come to a meeting of the board. So we talked about that. And I think I sent her the dates she said in May, sometime after that April would be good, but hopefully sometime in May we can get her here for a board meeting. The continuing disclosure, I just felt compelled to put that in. I put it in final draft. A lot of iterations, it's all this 8.5, but we go through that in detail and we update everything that needs to be updated. And some of that we can do in-house, some of that we have to consult with others, like schools specifically. But there's a lot of work that goes into that this year. And so we got it in, we got it done on time.
And what's the due date for that?
It gets submitted to the reporting agencies the 27th of the month. So they wanted to get it to them on the 17th. We had kind of misread their email and actually got it to Hilltop on the 17th.
Yeah.
So they were a little bit antsy,
Mhm.
but when we get it to them, it's 99% there. They do a nice job. They go through and flag everything that needs to be updated. So it's not like we need to figure out what needs to be updated. They send us a markup with everything that needs to be updated. We just need to fill in the blanks. So, but there were more narratives this time. There were some sections that we, like on the climate change adaptation, some of that are new things that we've added either this cycle or last cycle. So it's a lot of it's just updating numbers, but there's also some actual narratives and qualitative stuff.
It's sort of a good summary of the town.
Yeah. And like I remember, I think it was 3 years ago, we had the issue with the steel landfill. And we had the notice from DEP of, the post-closure monitoring and that. And I brought that up to Hilltop. And they said, yeah, you definitely need to disclose that. That's a, exposure, theoretical exposure. So there's those things that come up. It looks very dry, but there is, it does have a lot of information.
And that's an annual?
And yeah.
And what dictates the timing, the schedule when it's due?
It's always this time of year.
Yeah. I was curious if it's tied to anything else or it's just its own.
No, so there's this, we have to do something similar called the official statement, which looks very, very similar. That is associated with issuing debt. So when we go to market, for instance, in July for the bans, we're going to have to do an official statement. It's mostly the same information, but it's that's driven by when you're actually borrowing. This is driven, it's just once a year, and it's we just do it when we know every February or so we're going to hear from Hilltop, and they'll tell us it's that time of year again. It always comes in the middle of budget town meeting, and it's just one of these things that's very hard to find time for. But we got it done. Item U, we've got the interim compliance letter from DHD on the MBTA Communities Act, so that's great. You'll be hearing a lot more in the next couple of weeks about the consultant planning process there. Letter B, this, letter from Department of Telecom and Cable. We talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago, of just what, and I don't think we'll going to decide tonight, but at some point, the board should think about how you want to handle the license renewal process, whether you want to be the entity at the table or whether you want to handle that differently.
What do you see as the options?
Cable Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
I mean, they could handle the, you know, if you wanted them to, and if they were sufficiently clear on your objectives, they could be the ones having those meetings and advising you as the signatory. So I think there's pros and cons to that. They would have more bandwidth to do that, but would they be doing that without staff? Probably not.
Yeah, I think it would need
I'd
more
probably
guidance from
still
you.
be there, and so then spread thin on something that you're not as aware of, which, you know, so I think there's pros and cons to that. If they're totally in sync with what you want and know that, and then it could be less work for this board, but it doesn't necessarily play out that way, because sometimes it could actually create more work.
So when would we need to make a decision?
I think we have I mean, Archie, you've been through these a lot. I think we have a bunch of time.
There's a lot of
And
time.
just the
Yeah, like-
tone of the letter was
I
like,
know. To me, it's like, yeah, pump the brakes. Like, we got 18 months. It's not. You know,
all right, so we're not gonna,
yeah, we have time, but yeah, I think with the new, you know, after the election, with the newly comprised board, I think that's how we left it a couple of weeks ago. Is that once there's a newly comprised board, we should have a goal setting and look at everything.
Yeah.
And prioritize it at that point.
okay.
And then I know you had previously seen the National Grid letter, and Jim's office had gone ahead and put that on the web a week and a half or 2 weeks ago anyhow, so that's been broadly distributed, and that went directly to, I believe, Concom when it first came in. I think it had been copied to them.
Are butters to the transmission lines, you know, the corridors where they're gonna be treating, are they contacted directly by National Grid?
I don't know.
I can't remember. I don't know.
That being said, if they are not, we would be informed that they'd be doing it anyways. That's what it commits to in the letter, is that if they're going to be doing work, they're gonna let us know prior to anyways, so we could put out an announcement, things like that, if they weren't informed. I would assume they would, but doesn't necessarily mean they would.
A couple of other things going on. I did get draft language from Greenbelt earlier today on this transfer or proposed assignment of interest in the Coffin Street property. So I'll send it along. I can send that to you all, but my next step was going to be to send that to Sharon and just have them take a look. They had previously advised KP, and I said no action is needed by the town. Which is fine, but we'll keep you apprised on that one. I also did have on a separate Greenbelt matter. I did have a meeting, site visit last week with Dave Rimmer and with Michelle. This was to do with Artichoke River Woods, because they're working on how and where parking might work best, and are concerned about, because of the proximity to the reservoir, whether they are going to be allowed by Concom and DEP to do off-street parking. And Michelle and studied the regs, and she felt that there could be an exception that would allow that even in a zone A. And so we both said that we felt it would be very important for Greenbelt to exhaust every avenue before telling us they couldn't do that. So which I think was I knew pretty well was going to be what this board would say if that came up.
Yeah, there's parking,
Withers.
across the street where the Withers.
Right.
That's pretty crummy parking, tends to be flooded frequently, has huge puddles, where there can be. Yeah, I mean, if nothing else appears, I wonder if that parking can be improved at all.
Well, that was kind of what Dave Rimmer had initially kind of suggested.
Yeah,
And we were like, before you come in with that, you
Yeah.
better
good look at the other, yeah.
rule out the other, because it's way far down the road, and it's really not what was, talked about when it was brought forward, the land was brought forward. I think there was definitely a suggestion of off-street parking and like a little gravel lot. But yeah, if that just can't be permitted, or becomes prohibitively expensive, I think that's what they would be looking at, is that Withers property at the bottom of that driveway there. We've also been, there's been a lot going on with middle high school and the issues, the stormwater issues there. There's been enforcement orders issued. There's been a lot of correspondence on that. It's continued, that's been pretty active, very active.
Is it headed in the right direction, or is it getting messier?
It was, and then
It's
that big
messy.
rainfall we had
It's
a couple
it's
weeks.
messy, yeah. The site is messy.
Yeah, making a relationship and dealing with it messy.
Yeah.
That's your cue.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
All right.